Zoobox, is that you?
What the fuck kind of name is that?
Yo, Zoobox, what it do, baby? It's your boy, Ari Spears here. Going to win, Zoobox, and persevere.
The Zoobox is working.
I don't know what Zoobox means. I don't get it. Is this just some, I mean, obviously it's a code name of some kind.
Zoobox is working, man.
He says you a trash rapper.
Hey, man, I want to dress up like a bunny rabbit and fuck.
That's all I gotta tell you, Zoobox. Come on, man. Chin up, find a place to smile, right?
Hey, how's it going, universe? Welcome to another episode of Goes to the Movies Live. I'm your host, Sean, and with me, as always, is my adopted son, Jeremy. How's it going, Jeremy?
It is going all right. I am very paranoid tonight.
Very paranoid. They're coming for us, dude.
Yeah.
They're coming for us, man.
Yeah, they're pointing and screeching.
You see a crazy guy running down the street, it makes you think, maybe you should stop and listen every once in a while. It's basically like Kevin McCarthy in the 1956 Invasion of the Body Snatchers is like Alex Jones. He's like a prophet. He's out there trying to warn us. That's right, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the invasion of the Body Snatchers and the invasion of the Body Snatchers and Body Snatchers. The invasion continues and the invasion. I hope you guys are ready. That's right. Over the past couple weeks, Jeremy and I have been deep diving on everything Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And not only did we watch all the movies, we went ahead and checked out that source material, or at least I did. I forgot to ask Jeremy if he got around to it. I listened to the novel actually just the other day. It's on YouTube if you guys want to check it out.
And I feel like a really bad co-host here because I did not. I was not able to actually listen to the audio.
Oh, you're good, man. So. You're good. I mean, you disappointed me. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed, like any good father. No, I thought that was just totally like, hey, if you got time, it's on YouTube.
Right.
I ended up getting around to it, and I guess just since you didn't read it, it's pretty good. I'll talk about it more later.
All right.
But anyways, so yeah, that's what we're going to be getting up to tonight, and of course, we're going to be talking about some of the things we've been watching lately. We're going to talk about a little bit of movie news, and we're going to watch a trailer. Oh my God, what a full show we have for you boys tonight. And girls, I'm sure one of you someday will accidentally click on this. And how's it going? Anyways, so what you been watching, man? So we haven't talked in a couple weeks. We actually didn't really talk very much at all. I think we were both just kind of busy.
Yes.
So what have you been seeing lately, my boy, my dude?
Well, I've been kind of behind on a lot of the more mainstream current releases. I'm trying to think, though, but there were some special re-releases, kind of like when we were covering The Mummy last time.
Yeah.
I caught good old-fashioned Run, Lola, Run.
Oh, no. You saw it in the theater. Cool.
Yeah, I saw it in the theater. This is the first time seeing it in the theater, actually, because that was a film my parents actually introduced me to way back when I was younger.
Didn't they premiere the 4K? Is that how they premiere the 4K?
Yeah. And I'm always kind of weary of these like restorations, and especially how they do them in theaters. But this one was surprisingly slick looking without it ever like removing itself too much from the filmic texture that it's known for.
For sure,
I was very surprised by how much I liked the look of it, and it's again just such a tight, nail biting little thriller that it's
a very fun movie.
Yeah.
She was the perfect choice. I remember when she got cast in the original Jason Bourne. And I was like, oh, that makes complete sense.
Right.
I had just seen, I used to hang out with this girl in high school, and she was like a cool hipster chick, a little bit older than me. And she turned me on to Run Lola Run maybe a year or two before The Bourne Identity came out. Mm-hmm. Then I ended up taking her to see The Bourne Identity. Yeah. What a wonderful story. But it's a cool movie. I haven't seen it in years, though. I definitely got to dive back into that one. Dive back in.
I think it was like conceptually designed from a short film, and like just a small little concept of how can we extend this and do it in 3 different versions. And it's fun to kind of like do a play-by playback of just like how they change every little scenario. Like it's just fun filmmaking. Like
Yeah, it
my,
really is.
My autistic film brain like turns like lights up whenever I watch it. So
Yeah, I mean, it was very experimental and novel when it came out. That's kind of why it got the notoriety it did, because it was so kind of different. It's very unique. It's very much its own thing, and it's a style that was basically used and abused for a decade after.
yes,
Especially movies like action movies from Europe. Like everybody was doing Run Lola Run style stuff. The first one that I saw, I finally got around to watching Challengers. What's the director's
Yes.
name? Luca
Guadagnino.
Guadagnino. There we go. That's the one. Which I think is a incredibly impressively directed movie about awful, banal human beings.
Yes.
And I think you had mentioned this before, because you're like, it's kind of hard. You felt kind of torn. You're like, it's bravura filmmaking. I mean, it's fucking balls to the wall. Like, he directed the hell out of that movie in service of this story, which was kind of a bummer to me, because I thought the story was very like limp and facile and overly simple and not that engaging, honestly. Zendaya, once again, the weak link out of the trio of actors there. But yeah, it's just kind of more of this subversive, like being in normal relationships is lame. Just kind of be open and competitive with each other. And I know that some of that has to do with their characters and their situation as tennis players, as top tennis pros. But I felt like the subtext went beyond the realms of the tennis court, we'll say.
Yes, yeah. Did you like though the especially not even just the direction, but just a lot of the cinematography in terms of just how
I love the look of the movie, the way it was put together. It's paced immaculately. I mean, like from a technical perspective, like craftsmanship wise, it's a masterpiece. Like, it's really good. But I really dislike the story. So I have to I'm trying to be as objective and as fair as possible. I do think it's a slam dunk in terms of a piece of craftsmanship, a piece of filmmaking, but I really dislike that story. I really dislike the characters. And I kind of had a hard time getting over that. Like, I just couldn't. I was just like, oh, another one of these fucking movies.
Yes, yeah.
Like, that's what it felt like to me. I was like, how many times do I need to see like a variation on this story? But yeah, I found it a little exhausting. We got Big Paul and Trembling in the comments. What's up, boys? But what else you got, buddy? What else you watch?
Yeah, let's see. I did a nice little revisit to Donnie Darko very recently on The Last Dragon with Joe Bob Briggs. A movie that is, I guess, also very near and dear to my film scene as well, especially just in the fact that it was filmed not too far from where I live,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And holds up still really well. Richard Kelly kind of like gave us kind of a weird anomaly of a film, in the midst. Well, so I liked hearing about a lot of the backstory and just like the making of it. Like, this script was passed around to like every mainstream director. Everybody was actually very into it, but they didn't know what to do with it. And I think it was Drew Barrymore at the end who said, like, my company will take on we'll produce it as long as you put me in it somewhere. So
yeah, and that's how they got that made. Yeah, that's how they actually ended up getting it done. He's an interesting director.
Yes,
an interesting director. I kind of tend to like his movies, while also understanding why other people would not like them. Actually, he kind of made his own little Invasion of the Body Snatchers movie, The Gift, or not The Gift, The Button. Sorry, or is that what it's called?
No,
The Box.
The Box.
There we go. We got there. The Box. That's right. I mean, which I know it's like based off of a Richard Matheson short story, but the stuff that he adds into the story, which is the alien aspect, that there's aliens basically invading Earth, is, I believe that's all him. And it's very Invasion of the Body Snatchers-esque.
Yeah.
Especially once you get towards the end of the movie. But I don't know. I even like Southland Tales. Like, it's weird. It kind of doesn't work, but it's just it's too interesting for me to completely dismiss.
He's got this interesting theme I haven't seen all of the box actually to admit, but at least with Donnie Darko and Southland Tales, he has this like weird in between of like end of the world, but also like utopia kind of style where it's just like it's not really the end, it's just a new world.
It's crossroads. It's inflection. His movies are about inflection points. Donnie Darko is about an inflection point in time. Southland Tales is about an inflection point of what is the society going to do. Are we going to kind of go towards like renewable energies and get away from nuclear? Because it's a very like Hollywood kind of hokey, the politics of it are. And the box is the same thing. It's an inflection point. Are you going to press the button? How's your life going to be? What is this going to do? What ripple effects are these things going to have? You know? And that seems to be kind of his preoccupation as a storyteller. But I've always liked him, though. I don't know. And also he's got some cool. The box actually has a very cool score. It's the guy who's the one of the guys from what's the name of the band? Hold on, I have to look this up. They do the song Black Mirror. Song, not show. Song. Where is it? Black Mirror. Arcade Fire. Holy shit.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. Yep.
Arcade Fire. Arcade Fire. Let me see here. We got Trembling says, good directing of a shitty story to me is always like, good father? Fuck you. Go home and play with your kids. You know, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. What else did I see? What else did I watch? I went to see Return of the King in the theater. We were talking about going to see kind of revivals. It's the first time the extended edition had been played in theaters in 4K. It was a very long experience. The extended edition of Return of the King is close to 5 hours long. It's like almost 4.5 hours long. And then you add, like, they did the whole thing. They did previews. They did all that shit. I was in that theater for like 5.5 hours watching that movie. And now that I have a streamer's bladder, I didn't even need to take a break.
I was about to ask,
dude.
No potty break or anything.
No, my brother got up twice. I was like, what a pussy. This guy does not have a streamer's bladder. It was fun. It was cool to see it in that format. I mean, the Lord of the Rings movies, I've seen them so many times. They're kind of beyond critique for me. They kind of just wash over me. I get wrapped up in the vibes. I really enjoy the earnest, corny nature of those movies. I like how they're unambiguous about like good and evil. And I don't know if we'll ever make a movie like that again. I don't know if Hollywood will ever produce something like that again. It's kind of, I mean, they couldn't even do it again with the same guy, you know, when they tried again with the Hobbit movies.
The Hobbits. Yeah, I was going to say, like, it's night and day with how they handled those, like, going back to the property. And
you got to think about, I mean, well, he was waiting 20 years to make that movie. So, you know, there's a difference there. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was going to say, you know, what's so special about the Lord of the Rings trilogy by Peter Jackson is that you can tell so clearly, like, the more you watch them, like, what is clearly Peter Jackson directing and then what is clearly Fran Walsh, like, producing or whatever.
Sure.
Like, there is a disparity there. And both, like, go hand in hand. They find this weird balance, you know, where it's, like, I wouldn't say modern, but like somewhat like more catered to like modern audiences. Like,
it does. It definitely has
language and lingo and things like that.
Because we were joking about the woman from Rohan. The character's name is escaping me, but she's like the girl boss kind of the movie. She's the one that goes into battle dressed like a man and ends up saving people.
Eowyn. Yeah.
Eowyn. Thank you. Yep. You know, we were chuckling a little bit. You know, we're like. You know, back then we just didn't care because we weren't so inundated with this shit all the time that you're like, nah, that's fine. Let it go. That's fine. Yeah. Let the girls have some fun too. Like that's kind of was the perspective of the day. But it definitely hits a little different. It hits a little more cringe in 2024, those moments. But even then, it's such a trifle. Like it really doesn't matter. I mean, it's such a monumental achievement. Honestly, the weirdest part of watching it this time for me was that I watched it independent of the other two. That's something I never do. I never like just watch one of them. Right. I always end up just watching the trilogy. So I kind of went in almost completely cold. The last time I watched the Lord of the Rings movie was probably like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. So I was like, I had to get my bearings a little bit. I was like, man, I'm kind of lost.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it really is like a last movie. It really is the end of the story, you know. But yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed myself.
Yeah, the way he's got different views in terms of just how he looks back and reflects on the trilogy, but the way I've always kind of viewed it was I think Fellowship is the best film overall. I think
I
The
agree.
Two Towers is probably the fan favorite, and then The Return of the King is the most entertaining, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Well, to me, like, okay. See, I agree with you. I think Fellowship is legit, like, kind of by a wide margin, the best of the three. Like, it's a really great movie. It's just a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think Two Towers has always been my least favorite because it's just all business. You know, it's just, you know, and most of the movie is just a giant battle scene, which is cool. Don't get me wrong. We're scale. I'm rating these relatively to the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah.
And I feel like Return of the King is, especially after watching it this time, it felt like the most fan servicey, the extended cut I'm talking about, because it's like it's kind of a thank you from Peter Jackson. Like, here's everything. Like, here's my assembly cut. Like, I know you guys want to see everything. Here you go.
Right.
And that's, you know, so in a meta sense, like it's a very cool gesture. But I did, you know, this is the first time though in my life I think I really understood why they made the decisions they made for the theatrical cut, because I could really, you know, sitting in a theater, just watching the movie, like I could really kind of see it for what it was a little bit.
Right.
You know, because you know, there's entire subplots in the extended cut that are not in the theatrical cut.
Right.
Like the stuff with Mary and the orb. I don't think that's in the theatrical cut at all. Because I'm pretty sure it's not, because he gets. Oh, is it or is it? I can't remember, dude. It's been so long since I've seen the theatrical cut.
I was gonna say, like, save for the one bit, they cut out all of Christopher Lee's like final scenes, which that's the only one where I'm like, they should have kept that in.
They should have kept that in. Yes.
Yeah.
I actually said that to my brother when we were watching the movie. I'm like, can you like fucking put out a version of this without this scene? Like, how does that make any sense?
And it's made more confusing that his name is in the credits, but you don't see him actually on screen in the theatrical cut. So it's like, come on.
Because I remember there was a little hoopla about that. I remember Christopher Lee in the newspapers kind of complaining a little bit.
Right.
The OG old man complainer, Christopher Lee.
Yeah.
What else do you see, buddy?
My final one here, I just watched it a couple nights ago. It's called Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. And I kind of watched this on a whim, both in preparation for the movie I'm making right now, because there are two cameras that are identical to the one I'm going to be filming that on.
Okay.
In this very film, for the found footage angle. But then also just out of just more morbid curiosity after us talking endlessly about found footage and just having this one kind of like completely missed my radar, and not even knowing that, like, oh, you got Robert Englund and Zelba Rubinstein in it, and like, okay, let's see what this is all about. And I actually kind of liked it. It was not bad.
No, it's not an awful movie by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's like a little underwhelming because when I saw it, it was very built up.
Yeah,
very built up. Horror bloggers, you know how they do. I wasn't as savvy as I was now back then when that came out, but last time I saw it was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but I remember enjoying it well enough, like for what it was. I mean, just the idea. I mean, it's kind of takes the man bites dog.
Yeah, pretty much.
And makes it about a slasher villain, and it's for the most part it's pretty entertaining if you're into like the horror genre. You know, it's you know, a movie full of fan service and, you know, Easter eggs and tipping of the hat to every horror movie you've ever seen, every slasher movie especially.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next movie, which I think you saw this, In a Violent Nature.
Right.
A24 is In a Violent Nature. A24 Shudder. I think. When I went to go see this, I did not know it was a Shudder movie.
So, were you shocked by that Shudder logo like popping up at the beginning on the screen too? That throws me off every time now. I don't like it.
Well, now
feels
it makes
wrong.
my heart. Makes my heart sink.
Yeah,
because it's like I just drove a half hour and paid a bunch of money to sit in a movie that I now know almost with 100% certainty is going to be at best okay.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me. I was assaulted by In a Violent Nature. I almost left, Jeremy. I almost left the
Really?
movie. I don't normally ever do that. Now, I don't think you were as violent towards it as I am.
Right.
But so what was your take on it?
I was just kind of in the middle of the road with it. I think and maybe you got the sense of it too, but it reminded me, and I think a lot of people are saying this on like in their reviews or scattered elsewhere, but it did feel like I was playing Jason Voorhees in a video game, like in the recent, for a lot of it.
It's so annoying, dude, that they build a conceit and then they don't even stick to it. Like it's so, and this is the second Shudder movie I've seen in a theater that's done this. Night with the Devil did this too, where they have like a concept, a conceit, like a framing device, and then they don't, and then they cheat all the time. It's fucking annoying. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, when they kind of break the framing, I sometimes I do like that decision, but it has to be done like in a very conscientious
it has
way.
to be justified. It can't be sloppy. It can't just be because.
Yeah. And we shouldn't have to be enduring like through a long slog of a pace just to cut to that at a certain point and not again, like you said, not really justify it.
Well, it felt like a student film almost.
Yeah.
I mean,
on the other hand, I enjoyed the simplistic nature of it though. I liked a lot of the scenery and the shots. I even like this killer in a weird way, and how like he's not the most like
not Jason. You mean?
Right? Yeah.
He looks like Chunk from the Goonies.
Kind of, yeah, a little bit.
They finally do that reveal.
Yeah. But I also I was telling this to a coworker as well. Like I'm not a big fan of the victims and how they were performed either.
They were so awful.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the most dog shit performances I've ever seen.
Right.
In like a movie that I paid money to go see in a theater. That's why I was like, it feels like a student film. I just want to give people the flavor of it, so I'm just kind of playing the trailer silently here in the background. They're showing you all of the most exciting moments of the film. You guys ever see the movie Jerry by Gus Van Sant?
Oh gosh.
It's not quite that bad.
Yeah,
well,
it's not that bad.
Not quite that like muted, but I don't know. I just thought the whole thing was so fucking pretentious and exhausting and obvious and like it wasn't clever at all. It is exactly what you think it's going to be. It never once surprised me or did anything remotely interesting. I think the video
yoga scene, yeah.
I think the video game sentiment that you brought up, I think is very apt. Not just for the camera angle. So when he's stalking through the forest, he can hear everything everybody says like he has a shotgun mic. Mm-hmm. Or does he? I mean, the movie's not very clear about that. I have to assume because we're in his POV that he's hearing it.
Well, and if you're any kind of filmmaker or maybe even a video game designer, or if you've worked on sets, that's all you're thinking about at that point. You're not even like thrilled or scared by a movie like this because you're just thinking about like, how is all the sound getting
why am I
here?
Why am I hearing this?
Yeah,
like because what they need to do is they needed dialogue in the movie. They need to explain and give context and talk about things. They had to have characters, but they kind of wanted to. It seems like maybe they started out with like more locked into the concept because from what I understand, they actually reshot about 70% of this movie after their first shooting. They got it together. They saw that it wasn't working, and they went and reshot most of the movie. So I'm kind of curious if like the original cut of the movie is much more like, for lack of a better way to put it, like pure, like treats the concept purely, where we actually stay with not Jason for the entire movie rather than constantly kind of, well, it's not constant. It's like strategically placed for exposition that we leave his POV for, 5 or 6 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
That's how they, there's this, when they introduce the campers or we get to know the campers, they have one of these shots where it's like this is going around the campfire shot. And it kind of gave me motion sickness because when they were editing, they weren't matching like the flow of the revolving shots. So it would very aggressively and often just cut to somebody else talking and then start going in a different direction.
Those hard cuts. Yeah, yeah. I know what you
It was
yeah.
like, it was very, because, you know, clearly the cast couldn't get it. They couldn't get it with just a revolving shot. Because I can imagine being a director and being like, oh, it's going to be awesome, dude. We're going to do this revolving shot around a campfire. We're going to get everything we need to know, and then we're going to get back in. And that's not how it plays out at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found it really obnoxious. I mean, I can understand, like, you know, liking it in kind of an objective level, kind of looking at it as somebody that's, you know, making their own movies and stuff like that, for sure. And I think if you're into that, or if you have those ambitions in your life, definitely a movie worth checking out, for sure, because you're going to see what's out there and you're going to see what people are doing. And, you know, you could learn about what they shot the movie on and stuff like that. Because actually, if I do like one thing, I do like the look of the movie. Mm-hmm. I do like its kind of naturalist vibe.
And this comes from director Chris Nash, who did a lot of shorts, I think, leading up to this. He did something in ABC's of Death 2. T is for Thread. Yeah, a bunch of just,
Yeah, he's one of these guys. He's one of these guys.
Yeah.
He's one of these Austin guys.
That gets recruited. I was just going to add, like, what was I going to say? Yeah, it feels like one of these just like unfinished, like you were saying, like I guess all the post production they had to do, like just one of these kind of unfinished, unrealized sort of like products.
Yeah.
And this is the weird thing with Shudder. I'll even say is that they will pick up almost anything to distribute, no matter how like shitty it is. Like they're almost neck and neck with Amazon Prime at the moment.
I would say they're worse than Amazon. They're worse. They have less of an excuse.
Yeah.
Like they're supposed to be curated. I mean, we know why they do it. You need content. If you have people paying for subscriptions, you have to put new movies on your service pretty regularly.
Yeah.
And that's why they do it. You know, every garbage European slasher is on Shudder from the past like 20 years. Most of them are pretty mediocre. I watched a bunch of them when I first got Shudder 5 or 6 years ago.
It started off strong, but like I'm veering on that edge now where I might just cancel my subscription this year. I don't know.
I canceled mine, man, because I was like, well, the only thing I watch really anymore is Joe Bob Briggs. And even that doesn't have the same kind of sense of itself anymore.
No.
It's a little bit more washed out. It's a little bit more like reading a Wikipedia article to me. Like they've slowly just removed his personality more and more from that show. And it just becomes more about like cross promotion and guests and Darcy. And that's just not really what I was there for, you know? And I own most of the movies on there that I'd want to watch on there.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, and the new movies, the Shudder stuff is usually fucking trash. Why keep it? Why would I pay $5 even though it's only $5 a month? You know, it's one of the more reasonably priced services. Although Screenbox kind of has the edge. They have a similar problem.
Sure.
There's a lot of trash on Screenbox. Troubling in the chat says A24 and Shudder logos both now make me turn something off. Well, I'm not quite there yet with A24, but Shudder sometimes now I am.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I think I live tweeted it because there wasn't really a lot of people in the theater, and I was like had a barrier like that blocked me from the rest of the people there. And I saw the Shudder logo, and I was like, oh no. Why? Trembling also says, what is the mask? From behind, he's reminding me of that Spanish movie Time Crimes. The mask actually does kind of look like the mask from Time Crimes. So that might have been intentional. It's like an old welder's mask, I think.
Right, yeah. It's got like a similarity to like a fireman's like early like old.
Maybe that's what it was. He finds it in a shack next to some of his killing devices. Listen, A+ for effort. There's some like okay kills in it if you're into the gore stuff. You want to gore hound it up. There's a few moments for you, but overall, disavow.
You know, it hasn't been made yet, but it's no sharp end of a buck knife. I'll tell you that much.
Listen, that's what I'm hearing. That's the chatter. That's the scuttle.
Yeah.
That's the scuttle that's out there. Sharp end of a buck knife and a violent nature. I mean, people are telling me all the time. Like, just wait for the sharp end of a buck knife. then you're gonna get some real slasher action. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll briefly mention I watched Split Second and Dark Angel on stream. So if anybody wants to go check that out, you go check that out there. You'll hear my opinions. I like both of them for what they are, for different reasons. I was in kind of a bad mood on Saturday. Kind of having just a down day, as they say. I needed some yucks. I needed some wholesome laughter to bring me up out of my curmudgeonness. And so I randomly put on 1995's Peter Segal directed Tommy Boy.
Okay.
And then I followed that up with Billy Madison.
All right.
Listen, I got to tell you, Tommy Boy holds up pretty well. I was actually kind of surprised. I had not seen it since I was probably like a teenager, like actually sat and watched Tommy Boy in a very long time. It was a staple of my youth, so nostalgia definitely plays a factor.
Right.
But I was surprised at how well it worked and how funny it was and how, while the story is not complicated, it's not contrived really too much, and it's not like awful or hard to follow, and it's just there as in service of the gags, just road trip gags, and I had a really good time. It really feels like it's from a different, well, it is literally from a different era, made by a different species.
Yes.
We're not allowed to have that kind of fun anymore. I mean, one of my favorite bits in the movie is when he's taking his his final exam in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like all of the founding fathers are listed, like, or all the people that signed the Declaration of Independence, and there was a blank and then Hancock, and he had to fill in the blank. It's obviously John Hancock, but Tommy Boy says Herbie Hancock, and then he smugly corrects David Spade later in the movie when he asks his dad for his John Hancock, and he says, "Oh, come on, I went to college. It's Herbie Hancock." Yeah. Trembling says, Tommy Boy holds up, but Billy Madison doesn't to me. Billy Madison is too silly. Happy Gilmore is the classic Sandler that holds up. I understand where you're coming from, 100%. This could be because of the edibles I was on. I had a fucking blast watching Billy Madison. Honestly, the movie revealed itself to me in a way that it had never revealed itself to me before. I never realized how committed to being an absurdist comedy it was. And like I said, this is another movie I had not seen in maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
So I'd almost like completely forgotten most of it until I started watching the movie and then, remembering as I was watching. But it is just full of crazy, weird non sequiturs and fantasy nonsense. And I mean, even the conceit of the movie itself is obviously ridiculous. A man going through high school elementary through high school 2 weeks at a time, But it's kind of like Tommy Boy in the sense that it also is like a gag factory, and it's just there to have like funny gags that take place with a man that's going to school.
Mm-hmm.
You
know what's so great about this era though too? Like especially like if you want to go from like 1991 to like maybe to like 2001, like that whole era.
Dude, it's literally post 9/11. You can just mark it at 9/11, and then you're like, oh, we didn't do this anymore.
Yeah, they still feel like they are raunchy comedies, but they still feel like films, and they're not made the way that they are today. Just like they're
slightly more cinematic.
If even though, but more commercial. Or there's like a too much of a polished quality, way too hyper edited. It's not.
Oh no! Nowadays everything looks flat and ugly.
Yeah. The flat.
It's. I mean, look at a modern Adam Sandler movie. They look disgusting. It's awful.
yeah.
It's like it's the same reason why they do it with sitcoms.
Right.
It's lowest common denominator. It makes it accessible and recognizable to anybody in the world, like that shooting style. Like globally, they have conformed to that like kind of way of making things. Mm-hmm. So everybody's movies and shows and things, they all look the fucking same. There's no character anymore. Mm-hmm. It's awful. I mean, I think even back then, even just being like shot on film just elevates it. Just adds a texture. There's a grain. It feels real. It doesn't, even amongst the madness, amongst all the silliness, there's still a grounded quality to it just because of that.
Yeah.
There's something tangible about it in a way that I don't think, especially comedies, modern comedies, do not have.
No.
Do not have at all. Trelling says, quote unquote, now hold on, maybe they're talking about someone else, is a great line from Norm when the news are smearing Billy Madison. Dude, Norm and his buddy, they have so many great moments. Like when his fat buddy is just spraying a kid with a hose for no reason.
Yeah.
At the party, at one of the graduation parties or whatever, and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, nothing. And he just then he goes back and starts smiling and spraying the kid with the hose. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And there's tons of moments like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, what was the culmination of like things like Tommy Boy, Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore? I feel like Freddie Got Fingered is like the
it's like
the
the
cherry
quintessential
on-
end. Yeah.
it's the period. It's the period.
Yeah.
It's like we're done making these movies now.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that's a movie that I came around to as an older person. Like I never really cared for Freddie Got Fingered until I got older, which is weird.
Right.
Because I started appreciating it on a different level.
Well, yeah, and when you learn more about the making of it too, it's one of those just great examples, like "fuck you, money" sort of movies that like would not get made today or something.
No,
yeah. On that level,
I can't believe it got made back then. Honestly,
yeah, right. This is a good quick segue though. Before we get into other stuff, I'll say one final film I watched. If we're gonna stay in the SNL theme here, I rewatched. So I married an.
Oh no, okay, never mind.
Maybe that is due for a rewatch as well at some point. No. So I married an ex-murderer with Mike Myers.
Oh, okay.
Which I think is actually probably one of my favorite comedies of that time.
It's a very funny movie, and it's got like a really nice saccharine sweetness to it as well.
Yes. Yeah.
That it actually doesn't feel unearned, and it also has one of my favorite Phil Hartman bits when they go to the prison.
I was gonna say that's my favorite part.
Yeah. They took turns pissing in his eye sockets.
Anyways, let's move along.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on. Phil Hartman, rest in peace, Phil Hartman.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. He was a favorite of mine growing up. Like,
right.
I like my sitcom of my youth. The one that I watched the most was News Radio. And also, I grew up watching a lot of SNL reruns on Comedy Central when they were on. But News Radio was like my favorite thing when I was like right before I was a teenager into teens, and Phil Hartman made a huge impact on me as a person in terms of my comedic stylings. Signal Intrusion said Phil Hartman as Vicky is iconic. Trembling also says, man, I had the strongest weird crush on Nancy Travis from So I Married an Axe Murderer as a kid. Hey, she's a cutie patootie. Kind of like an unconventional beauty, you know?
Yeah.
You know who she kind of reminds me of, Jeremy? You know what other actress she
Judith
reminds
Hogue?
me of?
Are you about to say
One Judith Hogue, everybody. That's right. We're officially into the news. So if you guys don't know, I'm sorry. Did you have anything else to say about that? That was really rude of me.
Oh no, that's about
I
it.
took
That's about
I
what-
took the opportunity for the segue, and I'm like, I'm just going to keep rolling.
Yeah, if you haven't seen So I Married an Ex-Murderer, check it out now. It's great. It's a good film about somebody that is just doing slam poetry and needs to find love.
I know.
So, yeah.
It should be very cringe.
It
But I
should
kind of
be.
but
Yeah.
but they kind of acknowledge that it's cringe to be like a jazz beat poet in the movie. So,
You're right.
but anyway, so our story is TMNT: The Last Ronin writer wants original April O'Neil star for the R-rated adaptation. Honestly, I have no idea why this is going to be rated R. I've read the comic book that they're adapting, and you don't need to make this rated R, but we're going to. So Judith Hogue. So this is just the writer. He's doing a little wish casting. Maybe he's throwing it out there. So maybe some feelers. Maybe some people start reaching out to agents and whatnot. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles writer Tom Waltz wants, what a name. Legacy cast member Judith Hogue to return as April O'Neil in the upcoming R-rated outing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. In an interview with Screen Rants, Waltz, whose contributions to the TMT franchise over the years have included various video games, comics, including the Last Ronin comic book sequel, blah, 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 blah. So what do we think of this? What do we think of this news in general? Have you read The Last Ronin? Do you know anything about it?
I know. Since we did our last Turtles discussion months ago, I do know the general concept of the story, but I've not actually read it myself. there's a really cool little, I think like fan made trailer out there on YouTube that my
Oh
friend
yeah, I
sent
saw
me.
that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Where it's like, I guess it's Mikey doing a terrible job of like performing seppuku and realizing he's got to avenge everybody and
Yeah,
make ends meet.
yeah, he's the last one. Everybody's dead. There's a question whether or not he is somehow responsible or indirectly responsible. Anyways, he feels like he's responsible.
Yeah.
It's not a bad comic. You know, especially for a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle one. It has, has action, it has levity, it has some pathos there. It's kind of a dour, of course it is. It's very depressing and dour. Prophet in the chat says, rushes in from NECA King Studios, straightens tie. What did I miss? Trelling says, perfect timing. Yes, perfect timing indeed. Prophet himself, he has an opportunity to go meet Miss Hogue if he would like to in the near future. I'm just saying, maybe you should, brother. Maybe you should. You might not get this chance again.
You got to show her your NECA collection, man.
Oh, dude, she'd be very impressed.
Yeah.
Show her the shelf, buddy. Yeah. I mean, why are you even building a shelf if not to use it to get clout? People like Judith Hogue. I don't know. What do you think of a rated R Ninja Turtles movie? I feel like this is too much like Arrested Development, like man-child stuff. Like, we don't need that.
I was gonna say we're living in this time right now where it's just overly juvenile at this point. Like, I think Deadpool really kicked that off to a certain degree.
Yes, yeah.
And now we can't escape it. It's just like, oh, R-rated comic book movie is the new cool. This is how we're doing it now. There's exceptions. I like Logan, for instance. I think kind of goes in a different direction, which I think was more fitting. But generally, I'm not a big fan of like this approach, especially when it's just like, you're not supposed to take the Turtles this seriously. From the get-go, they're goofy.
I agree, and I think their audience should be teenage boys.
Yes.
I mean, not to say that, like, and I would, if this was the 90s, I probably wouldn't care as much because, teenage boys went to see rated R movies all the time in the 90s. That's really not the world we live in anymore. And I feel like you're just creating this barrier to entry. Also, like, how is that going to perform at the box office? Like, even the ones for kids don't do that well. Like, I mean, if the parents of children that are into TMNT are the target audience for The Last Ronin, and they're not even taking their fucking kids to see Ninja Turtles movies, then who cares? Like, why would you do that? You know what I mean? It just seems kind of short-sighted, in my opinion, because it's made for a headline. It's made to make a splash. Like, we're going to do a grim, dark Ninja Turtles movie.
Some sicko out there is thinking like in 2035, I'm going to make an R-rated Bluey show or something like that. I'm like, come on, dude.
Oh, dude, well, there was that guy, the guy from Get Out. The actor from Get Out is like planning some weird Barney movie that's for adults. And he just was like, yeah, it was such a impactful thing in all of our childhood. Like, well, let's look under the hood. And you're like, why? It's a fucking made for 4-year-olds. Like, you were supposed to move on from Barney a long time ago. Like, this should not be a consideration in your life anymore. But that's just me. Maybe I'm an old curmudgeon. Signal Intrusion says, I think Axe Murder is somewhat underrated. Got drowned out by Austin Powers. Lots of fun little parts by Charles Grodin, Stephen Wright, and Michael Richards, plus Alan Arkin. I couldn't agree more.
Alan Arkin is really good in it, too. Yeah.
I mean, it got a lot of play on, like, Comedy Central when I was a kid. That's probably where I saw it the first time. Trembling says to Prophet about going to see Judith Hogue. He says, wear gray sweatpants and act like you're Casey Jones towards her. Prophet says, I can't show Judith the shelf. I don't need her blowing up my phone constantly. This is true. True. Prophet says, my kid is already asking when we can see the Last Ronin movie. He can't quite grasp that he's going to be at least a couple years older before the trailer even drops, if he's lucky. Yeah, it's probably at least 2 years away. 2.5 years. I mean, Paramount is in kind of dire straits right now. They may be fast-tracking this movie. I think their acquisition with Skydance Studios fell through.
How in the story of The Last Ronin, how involved is how much screen time would Judith Hogue get in this movie?
A lot.
O'Neil.
She's
okay.
Yeah. She's like the closest thing to a co-lead of the story. Yeah. I think her daughter Her and Casey Jones' daughter.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. If it's a
Right.
daughter. You know, this property made for little boys. But like, it wouldn't be annoying if it wasn't every fucking thing. Like,
Right.
come on. Now, even the Transformers aren't even like for little boys anymore. It's like, yeah, all the little girls lining up to buy Transformers toys. Like, are you people out of your fucking minds? But anyways, I like, I'll watch it when it comes out. I hope Judith Hoag does go back, and if Judith Hoag goes back, I hope they also get Elias Koteas at least.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even, honestly, like the comic book itself is not, like, the story of it's actually not that memorable. There are parts that are memorable that will like kind of touch your heart a little bit. And those parts are memorable because I'm trying to remember like if Casey Jones is even in it, and I can't remember. But if he is, Elias Koteas needs to get a phone call.
And look, even if they don't get Elias Koteas to come back, they're gonna like AI art his face on like a character or something like that.
Let's do it.
To get away with it.
Maybe
So-
that's how we get him to do it. Be like, hey, can we just use your likeness and like face swap you with another actor?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, will you make me look young and hot like I did in the 1990 film?
Right.
Like, of course, Elias. Of course we will. Our next story, speaking of trash. So we're going to talk about this, but not really because of the story itself. Transformers G.I. Joe crossover movie taps Jurassic World writer Derek Connolly. Chris Hemsworth is in talks to star. Well, of course he would be. Jurassic World writer Derek Connolly has been tapped to write the Transformers and G.I. Joe crossover movie based on the Hasbro toy lines for Paramount, the Rap has learned. The entitled new movie will continue the story after last year's Transformers Rise of the Beasts. Nothing I like more than homework. Where Anthony Ramos' character Noah Diaz was offered a job with G.I. Joe, blah, blah, blah. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because this, for some reason, writers in Hollywood, if you can get attached to like these giant monstrosities, it seems like you work forever, regardless of quality, regardless of box office a little bit too. But I mean, maybe this is our problem. We just got to give over. We just got to give over. You know what you should read, Jeremy? There's a book written by what's his name? The guy who plays Lieutenant Dale in Reno 911.
Oh.
Him and the guy who plays Junior, whose name is Ben Garant. Oh, Lennon. Tom Lennon and Ben Garant. They wrote a book, How to Write Hollywood Scripts and Make Money, or for profit. And they outline how to write a Hollywood movie because they've actually written like a dozen of them.
Yes.
Like they wrote all of the Night at the Museum movies and stuff. So it's like a step-by-step instruction guide that's pretty funny about how to write a bad blockbuster.
Oh, so they're very like they're overly self-aware even when they're writing those movies.
Oh, yeah, no,
like.
they know that they're making trash, 100%.
Okay.
But they're like, this is what they want. And if you want to sell a script, this is what you got to write. Prophet says Casey is in Ronin. He makes his last stand with Leo and gets blown up by an army of mousers and footbots. Oh, yeah, by the way, spoilers. That's right. I forgot about that part.
What a way to go.
Completely devastated.
You can't do that to 65-year-old Elias Koteas.
Yeah, listen, man. In that cyberpunk future, he was just like, I'm going out my way. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not going out by the foot or whatever new thing is. The clan. But yeah, so this is a very, very common story in Hollywood over the past like 20 years. These guys just getting to constantly fail upwards. I don't know what the deal is. What do you think it is? Do you think he's related to somebody?
He's
Is this somebody's nephew?
somebody's connection. I mean, I think that's how a lot of these guys kind of like rise up in the ranks to make more and more of these, like, whether they're successes or failures, like just these ongoing blockbusters, just so they can kind of keep their clutches on like whatever IP is available.
I'm kind of wondering where they come from. Like, do they come from like the studio system? You know what I mean? Or are they kind of independent people that go in with pitches and then get hired on as script doctors and stuff like that? Like, because, you know, the nepotism angle would be very similar to somebody like, you know who Max Landis is, right?
Yeah.
Max Landis, like, I mean, the reason why he got stuff made was because he could constantly get into the studio's door because of his name. He could constantly pitch. Like, he got very good at pitching. Well, however you feel about Max Landis, he can pitch a script. He can pitch a story.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's tons of YouTube videos with him pitching wild, crazy shit, and he's very good. I could imagine him being very good in a room. You know,
Sure.
if I was with the studio, he'd be very convincing.
He's a terrifying individual, I will say, by the way, from those YouTube videos, the way he's so frantically on Adderall saying like, so this is going to be the movie and we're going to do this and that. And then, you know, it's just,
he's a little more low key these days.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I hear.
After he's had some of his troubles, we'll say, which is really just being called out for being a bad boyfriend. Like, it wasn't even anything that crazy. He's like, you yelled at somebody. Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Oh, Max Landis, you guys, they're all nightmare people. They're all like LA scenesters. They're all fucking nightmare people. And for some reason, I have a sneaking suspicion. Maybe Max Landis is probably not the worst out of all of them, but he was the most like high profile target because he had a career and he was, I mean, dude, he was making some serious waves. I mean, he sold like scripts. Like he had he was paid the most for a script from Netflix at one point. Bright. They paid, I think they gave him $20 million for Bright.
Yeah.
Signal Intrusions. I'm sorry. What?
Did he do Chronicle as well? Am I getting that mixed up? Or
He wrote the script. Yeah.
he wrote the script? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Him and the guy, the director. Oh, what's his name?
Yeah, name's escaping me, but yeah, he was.
But anyways, they had a falling
Yeah.
out.
Right. Okay.
They had a falling out like before I think Chronicle was even done. They even finished making Chronicle. Yeah. Signal Intrusion says, I see anything related to Jurassic World and I get cold chills like the Shutter logo instills. Me too. Honestly, that's the thing that caught my eye. I mean, because he gets work because Jurassic World made a buttload of money.
Yeah.
But Jurassic World is not a good script. But again, maybe the script is really good. Maybe the movie is just bad. I don't know. You know, sometimes it is not fair to lay the quality of a movie at a writer's feet because they don't have any control. Like, if they're just a writer on a project, they don't have any control over what happens to that story. Trelling says, I'm surprised Landis has slinked back onto a Red Letter Media. They invited him back. Home Alone Kid certainly shows up a lot too much even. Oh, Macaulay Culkin.
Yep.
Is he going back on Red Letter Media? Max Landis?
I haven't seen anything like recent of that, but he's been on.
I think they even
shows.
deleted. I think they deleted the episode he was on.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, I think they deleted that Neil Breen one he's on, like Best of the Worst. They did a Neil Breen. That's probably where I found out about Neil Breen, actually.
Okay.
Probably
but they didn't delete
that.
the Patton Oswalt episodes, I guess, because I guess we aren't fully confirmed if he killed his wife or not, right? So,
well, yeah. Once it breaks, though, you know they're gonna give it the
then
boot.
they're gonna have to.
That's when they're gonna circle the wagons, be like, Rich, log on to the YouTube, delete that episode.
Yeah.
The last story we have to talk about in our news segment tonight is I don't know how to feel about this other than negatively. An 80s cult horror classic is getting a remake from Robert Pattinson and the Smile director. That's right, everybody. They are remaking Possession. I don't even want to try to pronounce the director's name. Horror is riding on the crest of a wave right now, but there's always room to dip into the archives and remake a classic, right? Possession, the 1981 supernatural horror from director Andrei Zulawski, is being remade by Smile director Parker Finn, with Robert Pattinson on producing duties. According to The Hollywood Reporter, it's not yet clear if Pattinson will appear in front of the camera. Oh, he definitely will, and he will be playing the Sam Neill part. We're not retarded. Only that his acting involvement will be clarified down the road as the script and schedules develop. The outlet reports that multiple distributors, A24, Netflix, Paramount, Sony, and Warner Brothers, are all vying for the project. Who do you think he'll go with?
Ooh.
I mean, Robert Pattinson's going to be involved in this decision. I feel like he might go. Oh, he might do Warner Brothers because he's Batman.
Oh yeah.
He might have a relationship with. He might just have a relationship. Trembling says hasn't. I mean, they haven't asked him back. Oh no, that episode is still up. Oh okay, and they invited him to come back on, but he hasn't. Gotcha.
Okay.
So Pattinson, meanwhile, is leading Boon Joon-ho's sci-fi movie Mickey 17, which sees the actor portray copies of Mickey Barnes and employees sent from blah, blah, blah. Actually, we missed a news story about this. They're delaying the movie's release until next year because the studio isn't happy with the cut of the movie, and they want to go do reshoots and make it more palatable. Just so you know. So Bong Joon-ho is having a great time over in America right now. Yeah, you won an Academy Award, buddy. What did you think? You're going to be able to make little Korean movies forever? I don't think so.
No.
Trelmick says, there isn't even an actress as attractive as Isabella Anjani anymore. This might be true. So you've seen Possession, I assume, right?
Yeah, and I'm like looking at Andrei Zulawski's filmography here, and I think it is the only one I've seen of his. Maybe I've seen The Devil at one point. I don't know.
Did he do Gothic?
No. Gothic was Ken Russell.
Oh, Ken Russell. That's right.
Yeah. But they are very similar in
Yeah.
terms of like how they approach their films. No, I watched Possession on a whim. It's now become this kind of film meme now, where it's like, oh yeah, if you're a goth girl like film fan, like that's one of your favorite movies. Like
Yeah, because the liberation.
Yeah, exactly.
Isabella and Johnny freaking out in the subway. That's the first thing I ever saw of that movie.
Yeah. But I've always loved it. When I first watched it, because it is just so chaotic, and I think the standout is really just the absurd choreography involved in the movie, and just how it puts you on edge the whole time.
and it's a purely allegorical film. Like it's almost because it kind of doesn't work on normal logic.
No,
in terms of how anything happens, it's almost borderline absurdist. And I don't see the point in remaking that. Like, how are you going to remake that? In fact, Robert Pattinson himself was kind of in the male version of Possession. It's called The Lighthouse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is, kind of a modern parallel to Possession in terms of what Possession is about, because it's about, Possession specifically is more just about the end of a relationship. It was spurred on by the director either getting cheated on or somebody he knew got cheated on. And they told this story about his wife cheated on him with an older man who was very kind of well-to-do and educated and literate. And it made him feel bad. So this was like his way of working through his divorce or something. It's a wild fucking movie. I mean, the last act of Possession alone is worth watching on its own. Like, watch the last half hour of Possession.
Also, some really underrated like practical effects too, which I still like go back to, like this, like in Possession, and then in like things like Eraserhead and stuff like that, where like things that you just don't get see made in that style or quality, and in that shadow.
You can't remake that.
No.
Like, imagine somebody remaking Eraserhead.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What the fuck? You can't. It's like literally impossible to remake it. Like, so much about what makes those movies interesting or what makes them work is like the complete holistic context of which they were made in. Once you start removing things, then you start removing the meaning. You start removing connection. Now we're just going to be discussing some sort of intellectual idea. Like, Possession is about raw emotion.
Yep.
It's about how it, and how what relationships can do to you, and how you can lose yourself and lose your identity, and kind of striking back against that. And it's a kind of like the movie is like a manifestation of what goes on in your head when you're fighting with your wife.
Yes.
Like, that's what it is. And there is no reason to do that again. Like, in the same, there's no reason to make a remake. Like, do you want to make something that's like inspired by whatever? Sure. There's other stories to tell. You can tell your own weird, abstract allegory about your divorce.
Sure.
But it's so personal to the director. I just don't understand what the point of remaking it is. Without that direction, without everything that the film is imbued with from their lives.
And,
it's just I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying, like, and even if we're talking specifics here, you're like, every encounter with that couple, or even when they're on their own, is always kind of different. Like, it's always a different dynamic, and then there's also like they feature these like moments where it's like you're basically visualizing and seeing their self-loathing in real time as well.
Yeah.
Like it's not even like they hate each other or they can't live with each other or they can't work together. They can't even work with them. Yeah, like you said, like they're losing themselves because they can't even work with themselves. Yeah,
they're losing their minds. You're watching people go crazy, and it's a very experimental. It's very novel. It's not for everybody. Like it's not a movie you can put on. I mean, most people that I show Possession, which I actually finally own a copy of. I bought it from Umbrella when I got the Super Mario Brothers 4K. Although Umbrella does not do HDR, guys. I'm a little bummed about that. But it comes with like a book full of essays. It comes with a movie. I dove deep into this when I got it a couple months ago. And I really, honestly, I just have no clue what the fuck they're thinking, why they think that would be a good idea. It's like tempting fate. It's like Max Landis saying that he's going to remake A Werewolf in London.
No,
remember when he was going to do that,
Right.
He wrote a script. The script is out there. He actually was on a podcast and he described the script. He told the story, his version of it. I can't really remember what it was, but he definitely changes some stuff.
You just can't turn this into what would be converted to modern standards in general. Like if this was supposed to be a modern day film, it would suck.
Well, because the guys, are they going to allow the men to be like, are they going to allow the Sam Neill character to be like that in 2024? I mean, that guy, he's aggressive, but it doesn't shy away from having empathy for him.
No, yeah. That's the nature, I think, of or at least the cultural nature right now of a lot of movies, or especially the Oscar contenders or the big A24 jumps, is that like, no, they're going to reconstruct that character and not make him as empathetic. They're going to find a way to...
No, he'll just be a bastard.
Yeah.
And it will lose the point of the fucking movie. And that's what's going to happen, dude. I can just already see it. I can already see it. I mean, it's already pretty... I mean, like, I think, at the end of Possession, it's like... I guess it's kind of ambiguous to what the director is kind of getting at, but I think he kind of thinks that his wife being seduced by like a demon is not a good thing. It's kind of a downer ending. Just saying. Let me see here. Trembling says, it'll be that plain Jane Dakota Johnson. Actually, dude, you know what? Don't will that into existence, because that's exactly who would take this role and who would be offered it.
After that Suspiria remake, she's probably on the list. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or that wet fart Zendaya. They might... Zendaya would be another one that they possibly would cast. It would be provocative. It would be like Robert Pattinson and Zendaya yell at each other for 90 minutes and have sex with a demon. Prophet says, I'd pay to see Zendaya make a wet fart. Trembling says, go to any zoo and you can see the equivalent. I'm sorry.
I was going to say real quick, I could also see Sydney Sweeney on that list too. She's expressed a lot of interest in horror, so
I
put
hope
it out
not.
there.
She does not have the aura.
No,
she doesn't have the vibes.
Yeah, she doesn't.
I don't even know who the fuck would be good for that role.
Yeah.
You know who would be good, but she's not. I'm not saying this to be rude, but she's not the most attractive person in the world. But is it Tracy Cripps, the woman from Phantom Thread? She would have the chops, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Prophet says, all I can see when I'm fighting with my wife is a 55-gallon oil drum. Weird. What's that about? What are you looking up?
No, I was looking up Tracy Cripps. I was like, yeah, that's probably, I can see that.
No, I could see her because she's like, as an actress, is a good actress. I mean, she's phenomenal. And have you seen a Phantom Thread?
I have, but not since it came out though. But I really did like it. Yeah.
Oh, it's great! It's great. One of my wife and I's mutually favorite movies. Oddly enough,
it gets me stressed out for marriage, but I'll learn along the way.
Yeah, but it teaches you the most important part about marriage, which is compromise.
Yeah,
which is allowing yourself to be vulnerable.
Right.
Allowing yourself, and like they literalize it in that movie by the fact that she's poisoning him.
I was gonna say, just don't roofie my drink, and I'll be okay.
Yeah, then we'll be okay. It'll be good. Yeah. So, well, I guess that's gonna do it for that. Yeah, I don't understand that. Do you have any closing thoughts about the remake of Possession?
I just want to know where Robert Pattinson's where his head at is these days, because he's riding this Batman train at the moment, but he's still choosing the occasional project that's a little bit different. You know, Nolan picked him up.
He's in the Bong Joon-ho movie.
Right, yeah. So it's just like he's one of these more popular actors now again, who's making this resurgence.
And I will say, I don't mind Robert Pattinson. Actually, I think he's actually kind of matured into a good actor.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great in The Lighthouse. High Life, he was pretty good in that.
He was in a movie called The Rover with
Yeah.
who am I thinking of? Australian actor.
Yeah, I know too. Man, we're just batting 1,000 tonight. Oh my God, it's right here. It's a fucking Guy Pearce.
Guy Pearce,
and Scoot McNairy. Yeah, the Rover's
Right.
the Rover's pretty good. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a pretty good Australian,
And good time. Yeah.
Australian post-apocalyptic movie.
Right.
But yeah. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, maybe it's a little bit he thinks it's interesting. You know, he finds it to be like, oh, that's provocative. Like, what if we fucking remade Possession, guys? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the vibe I get. What if
the
we
vibe
just
I get
fucking
is
did it, dude?
Yeah, what if we just fucked in the Criterion Closet right now? How about that's like the
Dude, I watched an interview with him, like one of those actor on actor interviews, and he was talking to like Jennifer Lopez, and he's such a creep. He just doesn't want to be there. He's completely self-absorbed and disengaged. He showed up in a frumpy, like rolled up suit. His hair was greasy. It doesn't look like he'd showered in days. Jennifer Lopez is there trying to be all prim and proper. I think she had made the movie Hustlers at the time. Mm-hmm. And she got embarrassed because somebody apparently on the crew told Jennifer Lopez that Robert Pattinson liked Hustlers so much that he watched it twice. So she said that to him, and he said, "Oh, no, I only watched it once." Like, he didn't even have the self-awareness to just lie. Just be like, yeah, I watched it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought you were great. Like, he couldn't even do that. He was just like, no, I didn't watch it twice. I think I barely watched it once. I think he probably didn't even watch it.
Well, baby steps, Robert Pattinson. You're not quite at Shia LaBeouf's level yet, but maybe you'll get there at some point. You know,
someday. Dare to dream, buddy. And Abel Ferreira, actually one of our feature directors tonight, will put you in a Padre Pio like movie. You know, he's gonna make a couple more before he dies. Let's see what he's got. Maybe we can do one about Don Bosco. There you go. Just saying, those stories are out there. All right, so we're going to head into a little trailer talk. We're going to be talking about the trailer for the remake of the film Speak No Evil. Speak No Evil is it a Swedish film? The original?
I believe Danish.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
It's only came out a couple years ago. This is actually a Shudder acquisition. They bought this film. Let's see here. Let me share the screen real quick. We'll look at the particulars before we dive into the trailer. So Speak No Evil, this is the original one. It's directed by Christian Taftrup. Written by Christian Taftrup and Mads Taftrup. I have seen this movie. I think it is a particularly interesting movie for right now because it's kind of like pro-xenophobia in a weird way. Like the message of the movie is like, yeah, don't talk to people. Not quite that extreme, but it was funny to me to see all of the horror bloggers really talking this movie up. Because I was like, don't you guys like kind of understand the subtext of this film? Like fear of the other and how it's like justifiable. You get that?
It also just came out at a similar time. I think it was kind of near the end cusp of like the COVID hysteria and everything.
Yeah, it came out in 2022. Yeah,
right. So people were still kind of on that edge where they wouldn't want to like engage or be social with multiple people at once, or even in like closed spaces. And the film basically shows the end all fear of like doing something like that, especially if you have a family and you're just like engaging with strangers and then like trying to become friends and whatnot, especially in an exotic location where they are at, or if you're just traveling. It definitely
Yeah.
taps into some of those
Well, 'cause
relevant
it kind-
fears of the time. Yeah.
Irrelevant fears, but it also assaults our notion of etiquette and politeness.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole movie, you know, the characters are given plenty of opportunities to realize something is weird and we should leave, and they don't because of politeness, because they're too polite. I mean, the movie makes a point of that. It's that they're being way too fucking polite while all this weird shit is going on. So I'm kind of curious if they're going to change or augment any of that for the American remake. The American remake, right here, where is it? There it is. Speak No Evil, 2024. A family is invited to spend a weekend in an idyllic country house, unaware that their dream vacation will soon become a psychological nightmare. It's directed by James Watkins, and I looked up the director. He's done a couple things I've heard of. The Woman in Black from 2012.
Right.
I think his first film is Eden Lake, which I think I've seen.
Pretty underrated. Michael Fassbender's in that one. Yeah.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, I have seen that. That is a pretty good movie. Kind of like reminds me of like Kill List.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ever see that?
Yeah, it's been a long time.
This one has James McAvoy, Mackenzie Davis, Scoot McNairy. I actually really like Scoot McNairy. And I like James McAvoy. I actually like a lot about this movie, even though I don't really kind of... Well, I guess I do get why they made it. They remade it. It's like it is kind of just like a cash-in type deal. Like, it's a good story. I think that people will respond to.
On the premise alone, it makes sense why they would go with someone like James Watkins after Eden Lake. It's kind of somewhat of a similar kind of twisted tale where, like, people are just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they kind of wind up around like weird people that are not their own. And yeah, like you were saying, like it gets into that xenophobic angle.
I think it, but it justifies it though. It makes an argument that like, you shouldn't be so polite. Yeah, butch up a little bit, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't just trust fucking people that seem nice. Like
they might have ill intentions.
They may have ill intentions, buddy. You know, especially, and then it even gets into stuff about nationalities in the movie, where because there's a confusion about where these people are really from, etc.
Yeah.
But all right, we'll check out the trailer for the remake. I don't think I've watched the trailer yet. I'm not sure if I have, but we'll discuss further.
This is my husband, Ben.
Patrick Feld, this is my wife, Kira.
This is Agnes.
Has some trouble communicating. He can be.
You know what I wish? I wish Scoot McNairy and James McAvoy switched roles.
Yeah.
I think James McAvoy, that's way too obvious. My opinion.
He's a little too like maybe I'm just kind of like still brainwashed by his performance as the Beast in the last couple M. Night Shyamalan films, but like he already like comes off as a crazy guy, you know?
Yeah, he already looks wild. It's what my dad used to complain about with The Shining. He's like, of course Jack Nicholson goes crazy. Jack Nicholson was always crazy. He's crazy from the first time you see him.
Kill.
Nice Vespa. Yeah, isn't she? You should try.
Can we?
I won't call the fun police if you don't.
Okay.
Io lo so che mi chiami anche da diversi fusi orari. Ieri siamo stati esagerati.
Back before I quit my practice.
You know, I'm not going to lie. This does look like a magical place of vacation, and I might too get swept up in the moment. Might find myself at a weird person's house. I'm just saying. Would you like to go here? How much do you think this costs? Jesus.
Yeah, I would go, but I would go with a friend at least. You know, I would not go alone. I don't know. You just never know what's going to happen out there.
Yeah, definitely don't go alone to this family vacation spot, Jeremy.
Right.
Somebody will say something.
You're right.
Who the fuck is that guy with his goddamn camera?
Yeah, why is he filming everybody?
He keeps saying B-roll and then shooing me away. I'm like, what the fuck?
It's for Tape Tech 2, damn it.
Yeah, I need B-roll.
Yeah.
Listen, you have to come and visit. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah? Yeah. Done.
It's so quiet around here. Do you even have any neighbors?
Hey, you made it.
Welcome.
Ta-da!
You are VIP guests.
Just to remind you.
Oh, it's got that lady. I think she was in a show with Scoot McNairy. Catch All Fire or something. It was about like the beginnings of the internet, essentially. Halt, Catch Fire. That's what it was. And then she was the newest Terminator in Terminator.
Oh right,
Dark
oh, my gosh.
Fate.
Right.
Barely
I'm not used to her
recognize
with,
her.
I was gonna say I'm not used to her with long hair.
I'm not used to her not being all butched up.
Yeah.
Just to remind you, I'm a vegetarian.
Our gift to you.
That is so. I'm.
Louise, doctor's orders.
Very good.
You see, it's the subtle invasion.
Yeah.
You know, that's our theme tonight. These alien invaders. This subtle, like, kind of faux pas here.
The vegetarian. No, not the the vegan tubers are gonna have a problem with this scene.
Dude,
I think.
yeah, Vegan Gaines, when he sees this, Durian Ryder, he'd be like, mate, that's disgusting, mate. That was a soap. I don't know why he sounded like that, but
You don't know where that chicken came from.
not like my cats.
Yeah.
That apparently he says he gives them meat. I don't believe him.
Settle in. I promise you guys. Could be a great weekend.
How long's it been?
17 years.
17 years. Wow.
You get less for murder.
Also, I like they're like, yeah, it's a remake, guys. Why don't you just show the whole movie in the trailer?
Yeah.
Just show us the beat for beat escalation.
Yeah, this is like the 25-minute mark of the movie so far.
Yeah, well, this is like the Cliff Notes version of the story.
Yeah.
Something's not right with him.
He has a condition. Makes it hard for him to communicate.
Sometimes it's okay.
Yeah, he's a little boy in 2024. That's his condition, pal. Too
And his
rambunctious.
parents are crazy. Yeah.
Trebling says, quote unquote, I didn't recognize you as a woman. You say to her as soon as you meet her on set.
You to think things, but you can't actually see them. Oh no.
Thank God there's a doctor in the house.
I'm not a doctor.
What?
But didn't you say you were a doctor?
Did I?
Yeah.
Look at their faces.
Dude, I tell you what, as a grown man, at this point in my life, I no longer have patience for shit like this.
Yeah.
And I would be like, okay. And then I would just get my kid and get in the car and I would just leave.
Yeah.
Of course I'm a bloody doctor.
Agnes, why don't you and Aunt show us the dance that you've been working on?
And what is wrong with you? Just feel the way.
Like, he's too scary
Yeah.
off the bat. You know what I mean? Like, Scoot McNairy in this part, I think would have been more interesting. What do you think?
Yeah, it's just like, this is the point. I'm going to assume this is like the 45-minute mark. I don't know how long they're spending with this family in the remake, but yeah, at this point, like, we're out of here. And in fact, if you follow us, we're going to call the cops here. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'd be doing everything I could to get out of there, and I would have been before this for me. It would have been the chicken. I'd been like, the next morning, I'd be like, we got to go.
Yeah, somebody take the stand.
But like, just James McAvoy, he's just such an intense, like, hulking figure.
Yeah.
That you just kind of right off the bat, you just assume.
Mm-hmm.
You assume that that's going to be used for intimidation and to be scary, like a scary movie guy, you know? I think it would be a little bit more effective if Scoot McNairy did it because he's just more of a slender build and he's a little bit more fey, for lack of a better way to put it.
And unassuming, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And he could add like more of a creep vibe to it probably.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Did you see James McAvoy in the film Filth?
Yeah.
That I think that was like the first big role of his that I can remember that led to this like escapade of just doing like these much more crazier
roles,
roles like going forward, you know, because he started off kind of like he did kind of start off as like the more feeble, you know, kind of frail kind of guy until like he, I don't know, like got more
because it was like
then,
the Last King of Scotland, and then there was Wanted,
right?
And then after that he starts doing those X-Men movies,
mm-hmm.
but it's like Split, Filth, those both kind of came out around the same time. Yeah, and he's kind of locked into this kind of intense, scary guy. Yeah, a little bit of a caricature.
Them in your feet. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the one.
I mean, he's already showed him once. I mean, how many times this kid got to be told?
Right.
I mean, if he did it right, this is, basically he's like a Joe Jackson type figure.
Yeah.
He just wants this kid to be the best. This kid want to be the king of pop? You better get stepping, buddy. It's in time. Thank you.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you? I want to pack up the car and I want to leave right now.
They're literally showing the whole fucking movie, dude.
I know. This is
every major moment from the movie. This is crazy. Is this the Robert Zemeckis school of trailer cutting?
Yeah.
He's like, no, just tell them everything. That's what they actually want to know. And you know what? It sucks, but it's probably true.
I'm just sad to see you go.
That's just a friendly smooch. I mean, what's this guy's problem, dude?
They just start snogging in the next scene.
Like it would have like also kind of helped to underline the tragedy of manners if James McAvoy was this guy, because he's clearly more physically capable.
Yeah.
Right? Or at least you would assume if you were to just kind of, generally size them up. And it would have added this extra element, like, he's really trying to just be a nice guy. Like, he's trying to just be a polite person, which would kind of help to underline one of the themes of the story.
And at least going off of this trailer, like, this is clearly much more of a Western example of, like, how exaggerated it is. Like, there's issues with the original as well, but this is, like, it's getting too over the top. And I think that it's even kind of missing the point a little bit already. Just
I
from the trailer.
guarantee you it misses the point.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee that. It actually reminds me a lot. We were talking before we got on stream of Matt Reeves. It reminds me of Let the Right One In versus Let Me In. Matt Reeves' remake, American remake. Just it's very similar. It even seems like it's filmed in a similar way as the Matt Reeves Let Me In remake. In terms of the cinematography. But this is kind of what it reminds me of, because I feel like it's going to be mostly like a 1-to-1 remake with probably a few augmentations, maybe for cultural references. But also, I think that they're going to mess with the subtext a little bit. I don't think they're going to go so hard in the paint with like the xenophobia stuff. I think they're going to lean into the polite stuff. Yeah. That's what they're going to lean into.
I'm just sad to see you go.
You're gonna go out there and be completely normal.
We've been pretending it's normal since we got here. Dad?
Oh, it looks like they completely changed the third act, which they're showing you.
Yeah. Yep.
Remember that time you guys came to stay? You flipped out and tried to leave without saying goodbye?
They couldn't even leave that up to the imagination?
It's basically a very straightforward retelling now, and not like a subversive one, so...
Trebling says, McAvoy should have played Macbeth in that 2015 version starring Michael Fassbender. Just let him go full ham with it. Dude, I'd be down for that. I don't really like that version of Macbeth, though, because of what they do with Lady Macbeth. They turn Lady Macbeth into a victim.
Yeah.
Which is fucking not at all the story. Austin Calloway says, Nancy Travis is beautiful. Trembling says, definitely. I agree. She's a looker.
Yeah.
A real cutie patootie, as they say. Well, you know what we could check out right before we get into Invasion? Real quick. I don't know why they're doing this. I just wanted to kind of get your take on it because, since we're all nerds here. So apparently DC Animated is going to be doing a remake. Hey, what's going on, Austin? Signal says more characters need to adopt the Lawrence Fishburne and Event Horizon mentality. We're leaving. I agree. But DC Animated is remaking The Watchmen again, or they're making The Watchmen in animated form in 2 chapters. Everybody's kind of confused, it seems like. I see a mix of enthusiasm and accusations of desperation, essentially. Like they're like, what can we do to get somebody to fucking buy something or subscribe to Max or something? What can we do? Like, what do we have? And now they've gone back to the Watchmen, which I watched this earlier, but the most shocking thing to me about this is how much it just looks exactly like the Zack Snyder one, but animated.
Yeah.
Like there's full shots that are just
Someone's picking off costumed heroes.
Like, look. Why do this? And they're also using that weird new like mixture of traditional animation with CGI.
Yeah,
models.
it's that Spider-Verse animation style, which I'm already getting tired of now. Like it was cool at first, it was very innovative, but now it's lost its.
Well, this is even more low grade than the Spider-Verse stuff. Like this is kind of, if people out there, if you've seen the 2016 version of the Berserk anime, or an Appleseed movie that's come out in the past couple years. They do this where it's like traditionally drawn backgrounds with 3D CGI models as characters, and they're all like wooden and stiff and weird. It's almost like no theater, where like they change masks.
Maybe this was a political killing. No. Somebody knows why.
Like there's so much of the iconography is pulled directly from Snyder's movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I kind of don't. I mean, well, I do understand why they're doing it because they're trying to, like I said, they're trying to get somebody to pay attention to something they're doing. And maybe this will open the door where they can start adapting like all of that before Watchmen stuff that came out like 10 years ago. Trelling says, I hate that these animated adaptations don't try at all to look like the comic book anymore. Fuck, this animation is terrible looking. I agree. I remember when they did The Killing Joke and they made a big deal about how they were trying to make it look like the comic book, and it does not look like the comic book at all. And I don't know why either. Would it be more expensive to do it that way? I guess maybe.
This is my biggest problem with a lot of the comic adaptations today is like you have all of these comic book source material to like base your storyboards off of if you really want to adapt this story. And they don't normally go for it anymore because they just want to do like really very stock, very stale shots.
Well, if you're going to do this if you're going to do a different version of this story, of this comic book, graphic novel, whatever you want to call it, why wouldn't you just do the book?
Yeah.
Unambiguously. Like just do the book. It would make so many people happy.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody that was going to watch this is going to want that.
I think was it Dread 2011? 2010. They went right off of like a lot of comic frames for that movie.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Well, they had some, they had some creative people behind camera.
Right.
Allegedly, Alex Garland shadow directed that movie, but I don't know. I know he wrote the script.
Right.
It's a very Alex Garland script.
Yeah.
There is good and there is evil, and evil must be punished.
Oh, I mean, like, look at these. Look at that. That looks awful. That looks like a Ninja Turtles show from like 2004.
Yeah. Half the animation in was it Animatrix looks way better than this.
Actually, yeah, they were kind of doing similar stuff, but it did look better. Well, they had the money. Warner Brothers just backed up the money truck and was like, make us more Matrix shit now. I mean, that looks okay because this is traditionally drawn.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it's it's very plain, but it looks better than this or this. What am I playing, like a Telltale video game? Is this Telltale's Watchmen?
Right. No, that's actually a good comparison too, because like it's almost trying to veer into that rotoscoped scanner darkly sort of animation, but it's not quite getting it. It's still off.
Well, because it's not rotoscoped. If it was rotoscoped, that would be baller. That would be awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
But people don't do that because it's very tedious and very difficult. Actually, even in the special features to A Scanner Darkly, Richard Linklater, there's like a making of, and Richard Linklater at some point in the documentary is just like, I wish we didn't do this. This is it took like 5 years to do it.
Right.
Trembling says the 2-part Long Halloween animated movie, if they made it look like Tim Sale's art, it would have been an all-timer, but they just made it look like a half-assed version of the old animated series. Yes, I agree, because it's actually a pretty good adaptation of that graphic novel, but it looks awful. Looks like dog shit.
Punished. I do not do this thing because it is permitted. I do it because I have to.
But do you have to?
Do you though? Like, yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I'm not really looking forward to that. Imagery is nice, but it lacks the understanding of the themes and story that are found in both the original graphic novel and the 2009 film. Calling them out there. I don't know how you could really say that based on that trailer, but sure. Rorschach's Journal, June 13th, 2024. This looks like shit. Interesting. Someone says, I'll give it a shot, but we already have the perfect adaptation with the motion comic, which is actually what I was thinking of, because I was thinking of other things that they did when they were promoting Watchmen. And the motion comic, like if you want to just sit on your couch and listen to somebody read you the comic book, it's not a bad way to do it. It's done like an audiobook. It's just one guy reads the whole thing, does all the voices.
Okay.
It's not too bad. It's actually, it came with, I think you could buy it independently, but I know it came with the Ultimate Edition. That's how I have it. It came with it. Prof says, I prefer the woke HBO series to any other Watchmen adaptations. Stick it to the white man and such. I agree. Yeah, it's about time. It's about time. I was really happy to see that, when I watched that movie.
I never watched. I never watched that show, but I remember all the memes when it did come out, and just how people were not taking a liking to it.
Oh, like Squidward.
Yeah,
Manhattan Squidward. That was the meme that came out of that. It's not good. It's not a good show. Alan Moore would probably have liked it, which is not a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly woke. It's just all about how evil white people are. Trembling says, looks like the bean juice. It does. Well, without further ado, guys, I think we're ready to kind of get into the meat of the program. This is the main event. We're going to be talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers. All of them. We're going to be talking about all of them to one degree or another. This is going to be a free-flowing conversation. We're just kind of going to move through the movies, talk about the things that we feel are relevant at any given time. We decided against just kind of going through each movie individually and just kind of have more of a holistic conversation about what the Invasion of the Body Snatchers is about and also how it's been interpreted in different periods of time and, the types of adaptations they've made. So here, I'll give everybody a little flavor of the 1956 film. With this, not a TV spot, because they didn't do TV spots back then, so I had to cut this little thing.
Miles, where do they come from? I don't know. Suddenly, while you're asleep, they'll absorb your minds, your memories.
I don't want any part of it.
You're forgetting something, Miles.
What's that?
You have no choice.
From city to city, an incredible hysterical panic spreads. As the unimaginable becomes real, the impossible becomes true.
Stop and listen! Stop and listen to me! Listen! Listen! Listen to me! They're not human! Can't you see? Everyone! They're here already! You're next!
The great Kevin McCarthy, everybody. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's Don Siegel's 1956 adaptation of Jack Finney's pulp novel, The Body Snatchers. It wasn't called Invasion of the Body... The reason why they didn't call the movie The Body Snatchers because Val Lewton had made a movie called Body Snatchers in the 40s.
Yes.
So they opted to add on the Invasion of the... Yeah. So we're off to the races, everybody. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Jeremy. So this was your pick.
Yeah.
Why was it your pick, sir?
Well, I specifically picked the 1978 Phil Kaufman film, but that inspired me to really kind of go back and really evaluate all of them so far. All these adaptations that have kind of come through each era, I think, that we've been living through at the moment. Yeah, I don't know. I think in the last few years we've just been living through a weird body snatchers sort of world
Yeah,
in
sure.
some way, and I think it is camp and cult status aside. I think it still holds so much relevance right now.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Day to day, and also there's something you can kind of pull from each of these entries, even the ones that aren't as good as the other, but. As someone who hasn't listened to the audiobook or read it still, I assume it still kind of gets into a lot of these more cultural fears that were very present at the time. Like we were talking earlier, the 50s kind of deals with a lot of that McCarthyism, communism sort of era. 70s is a little bit more of that societal state world and
like
rise,
elites,
elites and like the working class and like how or like I guess the different like class systems. The 90s one kind of takes it into a much more intimate sort of zone, very specific, especially. We'll get into that later, of course, but and then we have the Invasion from 2007, which I rewatched for the first time since it came out. And actually found myself kind of liking the first half a lot more than the second half, and I want to get into that as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that because there's definitely, you could tell where they reshot stuff. Like
yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
but definitely touches on just like the new active technology, and also definitely in a weird way speaks to what was also going on in the last few years.
No, it really does, because it takes like each of them is kind of tied to the time period that they were adapted in a certain way, like Jeremy's kind of been working through. And the Invasion is no exception. I mean, it's kind of rooted in the CDC. That's a big component. It's an actual component of the story. And about viral transmission. It's much more kind of a virus movie than I would say any of the other ones. Trembling says, even the Nicole Kidman one that I forgot as soon as I saw it back then. Yes, we are. Prophet says body snatchers. Are we talking like tunnels or to Tel Aviv or? And then Trembling says capers are not rat turds. No, they're not. No, they're not. You eat it.
It is a cape bill.
Yeah, I share all of your sentiments. I think, like I said, I think they're distinctly tied to the times that they're made, and I think that's kind of what makes it fascinating. Like the original story is kind of it's actually really good. It's written super well. Jack Finney, I haven't read anything else he's ever done. It was originally put out in a magazine called Collier, I believe, over a couple months, because that's what it was to be a pulp writer back in the day before it was turned into before it was put together into a novel. And it's very standard. It's not really getting into too many deep things. There is a little bit, I think, of the political atmosphere of the time and kind of the distrust of your neighbor. Like that was a thing that was kind of out there in the ether at that time period when he would have written that story, because of, the fear of like secret communists and stuff like that, right? So people were kind of being a little bit more critical of the people in their communities. So there's kind of definitely that. And that's also a theme in all of the adaptations. But like you had said, the 56 one, the Don Siegel one, I found myself really enjoying it. I kind of just have a thing for this era also, like the B-50s sci-fi horror movies.
Yeah.
I just kind of like them, and I like that they're the mannered nature of them. But I would say what's really stuck out to me in that adaptation was Kevin McCarthy's performance. It is kind of a performance out of time because it's way more nuanced and natural than anybody else in the movie.
Yeah.
And that's before they turn into pod people. So that's, like he has such an interesting presence. Like I can understand why he had kind of a successful career as a character actor as he moved forward in his career. Because this is like one of the only times he got it to be a leading man, actually.
Well, it's a cool approach what they do with his character, too, because they play it like a crime mystery in a weird way.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
When he's explaining it all, and then he finds himself like he's still lost in it even to that point. Mm-hmm. And you see the natural progression of him kind of like getting into a manic state, and it doesn't feel unnatural at all. Like it's actually
it's paced really well, and like the that creeping sense of paranoia is a lot of fun to watch develop. Mm-hmm. And I love it, and this is something that's true in all of the adaptations. There's always a character who's one of the pod people that just lays out just gives a monologue, the villain monologue about what's going on. It was a little compromised though. The original cut of this movie is just Kevin McCarthy screaming on the highway. That's how the movie was supposed to end. The bookends that they end up doing, where he's been picked up by somebody after, and they stop the invasion, essentially, was a studio conceit, and that Don Siegel begrudgingly filmed, and he said he wished he never filmed it. He wished he didn't do it. He should have. He said he should have just stuck to his guns and just didn't do it. He's a cool director too. Was way more familiar with like his later filmography, like his 70s stuff. Like he directed Dirty Harry, Two Mules for Sister Sarah, Coogan's Bluff,
Escape from Alcatraz,
The Shootist.
Yeah.
I think that's John Wayne's last movie. Which actually, if anybody wants to check it out, there is a Goes to the Movies about The Shootist from a few years ago. Oh, yeah, we cover it all. Trelling says, what I love about 50s B movies of this time is that the men are capable adults. By the 70s, horror needed the characters to be dipshits for the story to happen. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I think that holds true with throughout the adaptations of The Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Like each one, the male protagonist becomes a little less capable.
Yeah.
By
the time they get to the invasion, I'm like, even Body Snatchers, like it's just a female protagonist at that point.
Yeah, exactly. They just completely get rid of the male protagonist.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's the McCarthyism stuff. I've heard Kevin McCarthy, the actor, says that that's not the case. That's not what he thought when he was making it. The writer Jack Finney also rejects this notion that it was subversive in that way. But Don Siegel, the director, he said while maybe he didn't intend it to be that way, it just came out.
Yeah.
Because of the time period.
Well, that was sorry, not to cut you off, but that was a lot of the films of the time though too. Like people were also equating that to movies like Them, about like giant ants, and they said like, oh well, this is communism.
Everything was communism back then.
Right. Yeah.
Turns out they were all fucking right. Sorry, McCarthy.
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry, John Wayne.
Yeah.
Apologize to John Wayne. He hated those fucking commies, dude. Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward adaptation of the story, actually, of the book. It's very close to the book. The book ends kind of in the same way that the book ends. None of the movies, I think, have the ending the book has, where basically they have like a meeting with the pod people, and the pod people just agree to leave, and then they leave a couple pod people behind, and those pod people apparently are hunted down until they're dead. So yeah, so it's a little bit more contained in the story. I do like the open-ended, obviously the dystopian kind of version.
Yeah.
The invasion versions that all of the other ones basically follow suit with, because it's the more kind of provocative, interesting route to take.
Yeah. See, man, in a different world, I would have loved to have seen a version of that book adapted to the screen, kind of ending in an unconventional manner like that. I mean, because what I was thinking about the original 1956 movie of this was also, this would make an interesting pairing with The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price.
Yeah, I agree.
The original I Am Legend, like I don't know, just because even in that time, like I think it was like halfway, like we gotta be very Hollywood with it, and we gotta be very explosive and fun, and scary and daring and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, we want to be nuanced, and we want to be faithful as much as we can to the source material. That was actually going for something a little bit more different that maybe the common audience would not want to see, but would be unexpected. So
well, it would have been very provocative for the time, for sure.
Yeah.
Like 100%. I mean, because people probably would, because it would, I can understand the studio probably thinking to themselves like, well, we don't want people to leave with a bad feeling, like kind of just that rudimentary.
Yeah.
We don't want people leaving with a bad feeling. We want people to feel good when they leave after a movie, like they've spent their money and they've had a good experience,
Yeah.
kind of the executive level decision making.
Yeah.
We don't want our people to be bad mouthing Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I think it was pretty popular when it came out too. From what I understand, I think it did very well. And I ended up seeing it, I think maybe on like the Sci-Fi Channel or something back in the day. And I knew Kevin McCarthy because of his character actor work, because Joe Dante and Steven Spielberg, all these people that grew up loving Invasion of the Body Snatchers, like hired him and gave him bit parts in movies. I think he's got a bit part in The Howling. He's in the remake for briefly, which is a great moment.
I love that connection too, because I always love to think that like it is still him, like years later, like just like carrying on into the sequel.
Yeah.
Like they just never reached that part of America yet.
He's still running. He's like Forrest Gump,
right?
Carrying a warning. Rest in peace to Kevin McCarthy. He passed away in 2010 at 96. Wow. He had a good run. He had a good run. He had a good ass run, this guy. But yeah, and it's interesting to see how it evolved, like especially when they went into the 70s and the kinds of things that they're, kind of concerned about. It reminded me a lot of it's directed by Philip Kaufman, by the way, everybody. It reminded me a lot of Cronenberg movies. Even though this is kind of predates, it reminded me a lot of The Brood, actually, because of what it's about. Because of the pop psychology stuff. Like I was so surprised because you had brought up before, like how there is a little bit of a class subtext in the movie, where you kind of find that the pod people are kind of like elitist snobs, essentially.
Yeah.
What they kind of covet in terms of who they want to take over are like the brilliant people. And then you have our hero played by the wonderful Donald Sutherland. I love Donald Sutherland in the 70s. Who doesn't like Donald Sutherland in the 70s?
He's got the bushy Jufro and everything,
Yeah, actually he got a perm just for the role.
Right.
He's a civil servant. He works for the city. He's a working class man. He's blue collar. He goes out to these places. He's taking his stuff for dry cleaning, man. Arguing with the Chinese lady. Like, he's salt of the earth, man of the people. He doesn't really, and he kind of floats in between these worlds, and he kind of knows some of these snobby, elitist people.
Sean, that not my wife. That not my wife.
It's a great, dude. Actually, I would say the 78 one, just to throw it out there, is my favorite of the four. Kind of by a lot, kind of actually.
Yeah.
And I only liked it more upon rewatching it for this. I really, really enjoyed it. Like I said, how these movies are kind of tied to the times that they're made. In the 50s, the original, that's like B sci-fi movies. This is the 70s paranoid thriller. And it's a perfect piece of material to kind of to utilize that for. Because a lot of these movies were kind of out there. A lot of these kind of thrillers, like, shadow governments and things like, the Warren Beatty movie, The China Syndrome with Michael Douglas.
Oh,
we're really doing awful tonight.
Sorry, everybody.
Not the Hudsucker Proxy. It's like, you know what I'm talking about. The thriller. Tremlink says, I know him as the bad guy in UHF. Yeah, me too. Yeah, he was great in that. I agree. But anyways, it has that kind of sense about it, and it slots really well into that time.
Disclosure? Is that the movie you're thinking of?
No, it's not Disclosure. I cannot believe I can't fucking remember this. Now I'm looking. Now you got me looking, dude. Oh, The Parallax View. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ. Anyways, The Parallax View.
We got to cut the show here. We're done.
Yeah, we're done. Actually, guys, we've shamed ourselves greatly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, The Parallax View. So, kind of, I think the temperature out there in terms of the movie-going populace was definitely primed for this kind of movie. And I was kind of shocked at how it was backing, like, working-class people. But I guess I shouldn't, though, because that's the time. That's the rise of unions. That's the rise of kind of populist, like, workers' rights and feminism and all these kinds of things.
Yeah,
kind of fighting...
Post-hippie movement and things like that.
Yeah, post-hippie movement, fighting back against the establishment, which the intelligentsia is also part of. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way for this movie subtext, because it kind of ignores, it doesn't really get into the idea of it being about communism or subversiveness in that kind of way. It's just kind of commenting on the arrogance of the intellectual community. I mean, like, what's his name? Leonard Nimoy's character, Dr. Kibner, who's like a pop psychologist guy. You know, he's so dismissive of it. He doesn't believe it. There's got to be something rational. Something has to be able to explain this. Like, no, this is a deep psychosis because you're unhappy in your marriage. That's why you think your husband isn't who he is, etc. Right?
Right.
And he becomes obviously like kind of the perfect proto pod person before he's even a pod person.
Yes.
I mean, when he's a pod person, he's the one that gets to deliver the villain speech, which actually does really good. Leonard Nimoy is really good in this, by the way. But yeah, I was just kind of surprised how hard in the paint it went against that, because it's so against like the kind of the current sentiment of these things.
Yeah, well, it's that whole post-nuclear family sort of dynamic and idea that it's pushing to. I mean, this is like the rise of divorce rates, families starting to not be forming as on such a high rate, and that continues going forward, of course. I mean, you even break it down with like Brooke Adams' character. I mean, she's flirting and hanging out with Donald Sutherland when she's already got a guy friend here, and it's just like they're all kind of bouncing around, you know, at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of loosey goosey, like
it
kind of come back around. Like it's in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it's like a middle-aged person's like last dying gasp of like the sexual revolution. You know, it's like Philip Kaufman's last gasp as like a cool hip guy.
Yeah.
To kind of inject some of that stuff into there. But I kind of like that it also creates a weird tension in the movie as well. And it also kind of helps to underline the subtext about trust and about what are a person's intentions, etc. Trembling says the Parallax View, Capricorn 1, All the President's Men, and 3 Days of the Condor. Lots of great paranoid movies in the 70s. Yes, thank you. I was thinking of all of those and I couldn't come up with a single fucking name.
I was thinking of 3 Days of the Condor actually recently too. I watched that recently a couple of years ago on a plane, and yeah, the same kind of vibes, definitely.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one in a long time. Another aspect I liked about this too, because it went back to the source material, because this one is much more into the kind of organic nature of the pod people and the pods themselves, and how this is like a spore from outer space. It's much more explicit. It kind of gets into that. It actually kind of reminded me, the beginning of it a little bit reminded me of The Happening.
Yeah, a little bit.
I was like, oh, this is kind of got The Happening vibes. The Happening could kind of be adjacent to Invasion of the Body Snatchers kind of movie, I suppose. But I like that. I like that it kind of it got into the grossness, which is, I guess, where the Cronenberg thoughts kind of came in, like kind of the icky nature of the pods and being replicated. I thought that stuff was really cool. There's some really fun effects. Even the dog face was fun. Come on.
Oh yeah, there's some great like body horror throughout this film, and it's not done in like the most explicit way or in a way where it feels like it's completely in your face, but it just feels almost like in a weird way too real. Like I could see this happening in a weird realm with like if we were like getting invaded in this like fashion.
Sure,
this could happen. You know, like you would have like little, and this kind of like spreads to the other two.
It is happening, Jerry. It literally is happening, except we just can't see the pods.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, like even like what we're seeing right now, the way they extend like the streams and the shreds of like web that like protrude somebody's face, you know.
Yeah, it makes it spooky. It's like eerie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it adds something to it because, like I said,
the skin is like decaying. Yeah.
Yeah, like the organic nature to it, right? Like it is of something natural. Yeah. In a weird way, it makes a case for itself, like ethically, about being like, no, this is just like the next evolution, because it's coming from like this natural, organic place, which is kind of essentially is what the argument the pod people make. That's basically what they say.
You could even lump it into like the nature revenge like genre, whereas like nature is really just fighting back and it is like tearing down humanity and like reforming them. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of incredible in that way.
Yeah, yeah. Trembling says, even this early Goldblum had to be half naked. Yes, he did. You got to show
Yeah.
off that bod, you know?
Yeah.
Was this before or after? This was after Death Wish, isn't it?
Yes, it was after
Yeah,
Death Wish
this
was
is
like 74.
Four. Yeah, I think 74. Yeah, 78.
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy. There's some great moments in this movie. It is a great classic, like 70s paranoid thriller.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also like a good adaptation of the material, and I kind of like its perspective. I
Yeah.
like that it's kind of on the side of the regular Joe explicitly.
Right.
I just honestly, for some reason, I was just like, I didn't remember that about the movie, and it really struck me. And I guess that just directly relates to the current moment we're in life, modernity. But it really struck me. I was like, oh, it's so nice so refreshing to watch something where somebody's not a complete fucking moron and is like a regular dude. Regular dudes can save the day too. Okay.
I was revisiting. I know a classic staple of all of our Ghost of the movies, and even like Flea Pit. You know, James Rolfe's old reviews of a lot of these like alien invasion classics, and when he talks about invasion, his main thing is that he doesn't like that the 78 Kaufman film is so fixated on the group, or at least the small group, like whereas almost like nobody has like a firm identity, where like he prefers the original because it's just the individual,
which is the point of the story. Yeah.
Which is, yeah. But I don't mind that here because it slowly, you know, picks off everybody like one by one, and you don't actually, when you first watch it, you really don't know for sure.
Yeah, it's got like a murder mystery structure to it. Yeah, like where they kind of they fall one after another until it's just the two of them, and then just somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's a valid point, though. I think it's a valid critique if you're considering the original, like the source material and what it's like the subtext of that is.
Of course.
But I think just in the 78 version, in defense of it, it just kind of did its own thing. It changed
exactly.
It changed it. And it also was just kind of, I think, appealing to the filmmaking of the era in the same way that the 56 version was, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's more, it's, you know, it's got like the horror slasher kind of structure to it just by virtue of it being a group of people that get picked off one by one. But there's a lot of fun stuff in there, though. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. And look, I'm a sucker for the classic PG rated film that will show some tits as well. You know, it's just... That's so missing
booties
nowadays. Yeah,
yeah. In the 70s, you could maybe catch a glimpse. You know.
Yeah. Maybe a little more so in a shot or two. I'm not saying I was like, you know, bouncing through clips here and there, but you know. But...
Listen, I'm not saying that I was Cooman. Okay.
Look, Brooke Adams.
Brooke Adams is a cutie patootie, dude. Oh, that's right. She was in the Dead Zone. I forgot that.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Cronenberg. But I think if you guys have ever seen The Brood, going back to what I was saying about The Brood has a very kind of similar perspective on pop psychology, where it kind of takes it to task in a way, as it's this thing that's trying to subvert like the natural order and brainwashes people. So, yeah, it would actually make a good double feature: Invasion of the Body Snatchers and The Brood. Oddly enough, thematically they match up. Trembling says, did you know that Leonard Nimoy did books of photography about mainly naked fat women? Spock loved to go pigging. I guess. He'd love OnlyFans. I did know that, yeah. It's like his coffee table book or whatever. He's he's just like the super famous person that's, I think he was wealthy. You know, a lot of the time those actors from those shows, these very successful, popular things, actually didn't kind of get fucked over. But I don't think Leonard Nimoy was one of them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Was that in his Bilbo Baggins song phase or something? Or what was...
No, it was like, I want to say like 2012, something like around that time period.
Okay.
Maybe it was like right around when the Star Trek 09 came out. You know, and obviously he used that as a promotional vehicle for his book of naked fat women. Trembling says, Brooke Adams and Karen Allen were similar brunette cute girls that we need a return of. Dude, I agree. I agree. Also, I want to give a shout out to Art Hindle as Jeffrey. If you guys don't know who he is, he's from Black Christmas. He's the boyfriend.
Oh yes, yeah, that's right.
Hey, Jeffrey,
I thought
he's
I
the
recognized-
husband. He's the husband. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's really good. He's such a creep. I was like, yeah, that is like, this is exactly like his performance in Black Christmas.
Yeah, and he's probably one of the better examples too of like the pod people like just playing it so measured when they're like talking to the cops and everybody, and just like underrated. He might
just
be
has
the
like
MVP.
he just has actually he could be the secret MVP. He's got just like a menacing presence. And I don't know if that's because I recognized him from Black Christmas, so I kind of just like grouped them together like that unfairly.
Yeah.
But that's definitely what activated it in my brain. My eyes were like, whoa.
Yeah. But I got to say, my actual MVP, my secret MVP, would probably be Robert Duvall on the swing set. It is such a quick shot. And I had to do like playbacks. I remember like, so my history with this movie is that my theater teacher in high school used to teach film studies, and she had like this huge DVD collection in her office, and she just kind of lent me this movie to borrow and watch, and then we adapt. I told you this, Sean, actually in our chat, but like we adapted this movie for the stage in my class. I think it was 10th grade or something.
Do you have
like
a
that.
tape of this or something?
I wish. It was so much fun, dude.
You got to start calling Facebook people. Be like, yo, does anybody have a tape of this?
Right. But yeah, I remember the first time I watched it, I think I'd seen The Conversation and something, and maybe one of the Godfathers at that time, and I was thinking like, is that Robert Duvall? Like, what? I had to like play it back so many times. Like,
yeah, I guess they're buddies, and he had been in a movie that Philip Kaufman had directed, and he was just there for the day, and
right.
They're like, yeah, you want to jump in a shot? He's like, heck yeah,
let's do it. yeah.
Philip Kaufman, he's got some titles here. Yeah. I don't know if I've seen some of them. I've seen Rising Sun, Sean Connery and Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
I've seen Henry and June. He did The Unbearable Lightness of Being. The Right Stuff. The Right Stuff's pretty good, if memory serves me correct. The Wanderers. I've never seen The Wanderers. The fuck is that? Oh, is this like the sequel to Rumblefish? No.
Oh.
This takes place in the 50s. Never mind. 1963. It's like a not musical West Side Story. Interesting.
He was supposed to do. I remember there was like a story where Philip Kaufman was supposed to direct The Outlaw Josie Wales with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Way back when, which is a movie we did cover with Jerry Jensen, Bloom Online.
That's right.
Years back. But then he got replaced because he was just very difficult to work with, or something of that nature, which I can see with Philip Kaufman. But
can you really? I mean, I was watching the supplemental features on my Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Because of course, Papa Sean owns it.
There you go.
Oh, actually, Kino Lorber, I think, is putting out like the 56 and 78 and 4K this summer. So you all know. So you're all aware. Don't buy it when it comes out. Wait for a sale, but time is ripe to be into the invasion of the body snatchers, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Time is now. He seems like he actually, you know what? Yeah, he seemed like a very like a New York Jew.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way to put it. I'm not trying to be anti-Semitic or anything, so calm down, everybody. But just kind of neurotic and whiny. I guess I could probably see that.
Yeah, I mean, in interviews, he seems like totally fine and very energetic and enthusiastic about what he has to talk about. But just from what other people were saying, like, no, we got to kick this guy out. In the case of Josie Wales, I think a lot of that was Eastwood. I think he kind of just took over that production.
Yeah, Eastwood was like directing those movies most of the time.
Yeah.
Like he was like Stallone. Stallone was like became that way too, where he became like a nightmare to direct in the 80s, apparently.
Yeah.
At least, Kaufman had the foresight not to film. The studio asked him to film a happy ending.
Yes.
And he said no. And the reason he said no is because he talked to Don Siegel, and Don Siegel said, they made me do that shit. Don't let him ruin your picture, Kaufman.
Yeah.
Hold on, I got to go talk to John Wayne. You know how he is.
Yeah. Fight for what you believe in. You know?
Yeah, because this has been around the time he was making The Shootist.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is the best of the bunch, though, for sure. I think it's got everything. It's got good performances. It's got an interesting twist on the themes of the story itself, while I think staying very true to the story. And it's just a really fun thriller. And I really like the way that the mystery kind of unfolds. Actually, I like that in almost all of the adaptations, like kind of the slow burn of the first hour. I just find it enjoyable. Because that's how it would be.
Yeah.
That's how it would be. It would be like these small, weird instances, these notices. You would just notice somebody acting weird.
Mm-hmm.
And you would be like, what is going on? You know what I mean? And you would think you're kind of crazy. And I like that that's kind of represented in all versions.
Yeah.
Like the kind of the creeping reality.
Sure.
Trembling says, Kaufman made Twisted, one of the dozens of Ashley Judd thrillers of the 90s. Man, they loved her at that time. He definitely did. That was one of his last theatrical movies. God bless him. God bless you, Philip Kaufman, wherever you are. He's still alive.
I know we haven't really spoken on it, too, because we got 2 other movies here as well, but, like, it also just builds on this whole concept of just... You're most vulnerable when you're asleep, you know.
Oh yeah,
that's when everything changes, you know. Like that's
how
it's
the whole theme
around.
The whole thing of just like kind of the meta notion of the phrase falling asleep or being asleep, being out of the loop, being out of the know, and somehow being vulnerable, like you said. And that's something that holds true. Not really in the 2007 one.
Not as much.
Not as much. It's more of like it's the most aggressive of all of them. In a way. But yeah. Yeah,
and then there's just so many good scenes to pull from the '78 film. I love when Leonard Nimoy, he's like basically he's injecting Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams at this point, and like getting them back to their side, turn on them, and like in the moment, they're in such an emotional state where they say like I hate you, and then they just like very calmly admits like, well, we don't hate you, this is part of the process. She's like, and then she turns to Donald Sutherland, and
that's part of your goddamn problem, because that's what I also like, because the pod people agree with somebody like Dr. Kibner.
Yes,
they actually agree with him about like kind of separating yourself from your feelings. Because that's what he's talking about. That's what he's like giving that talk at the party about. That's what he's talking to the woman about with her husband. It's like separate yourself from your emotions.
Yeah. Well, because in a perfect world, if pod people invade Earth, okay, so we don't have love, we don't have hate, but everything's still running okay. Everybody's still getting along, and everybody's in sync, and there's actually no disaster.
There would be no point to life, Jeremy. Life is about the problems that those things cause. That's what life ends up being about. If we didn't have those things, we're just machines. We're just cogs.
Yeah. Yep.
It's fucking deep stuff, dude. I'll tell you what. Gets right to the heart of it when you think about it.
Like a real big brain, watching it the other day. Yeah.
Oh, I love the sequence, the mud bath sequence, like that whole sequence in the mud bath that leads up to Jeff Goldblum being half naked and almost getting replicated. And I actually like that the movie is very clear about the rules, for turning into a pod person, and they don't really cheat. You could maybe say they make a cheat at the end when the girl turns into the pod person a little bit, but they don't cheat, and it becomes part of the plot that it actually is a process. And I thought that was really clever to do that.
Right, because you can sleep for a certain amount of time and then break out of it. That was the
exactly.
aspect.
And it adds like a ticking clock to scenes, so it just ratchets up the tension. It's just a clever way to utilize that part of the story, because they built it into the scenes, into the narrative itself.
Mm-hmm.
They brought it up to the forefront.
And we'll get into this, I think, with the Invasion 2007 later, but I wonder if the spreading technique of the pods Because I guess they hint that it's in a lot of the floral decoration and a lot of the plants.
Well, they're
surrounding
noticing
them.
that there's new foreign plants and flowers, like amidst their bouquets and whatnot.
Yeah, and I wonder how easily that spreads as opposed to in the 2007 version where you just have to be spat on or thrown up on to actually.
Well,
like,
the 2007 one, like I said, is much more of like a virus.
Yeah.
It's like it's like COVID. It's like getting the flu or something. It's
Right.
like bird flu, whatever was the issue of the day. I think bird flu was the thing at the time, or maybe mad cow disease. That could have been also around that time as well.
Yeah.
So that is what would have been in the ether. That's what would have been out there in people's minds.
Mm-hmm.
So, it kind of makes sense. It makes sense because it makes it much more quick. It's easier. It's, it's more terrifying. It's kind of the most artless way to do it because it's the most direct. It's just like, oh, you got coughed on. Oh, shit. Now you're a pod person.
Yeah.
Now you got it, dude. You got the pod. You got podded, dude. Probed, motherfucker.
No, I would say the Philip Kaufman one takes the approach that's more close to like The Thing or something, where it's just like it's always kind of in the air or exists.
Yeah, because
and it can just
it's a remake that totally justifies itself. I thought the same thing when I was watching it. I was like, oh, this is kind of reminds me a lot of The Thing, in its quality. Like it took that material, it did a little of it, and it kind of did a little of its own thing, in the way that The Thing does as well. It's the good way to do a remake. It's the right way to do a remake if you're going to. Like, if you don't have anything interesting to say about it, you shouldn't do it. And that's probably, once we start talking more in earnest about the 2007, The Invasion, that's kind of the problem with that movie. Like, it doesn't justify itself. It doesn't feel like it has a reason to exist. It just feels like, here's a movie. Here's some slop out there for your cinemaplexes.
Yeah.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers, you're dying to watch it again. I mean, that's kind of the thinking behind that stuff.
Yeah.
But well, let's move on to the 1993 Body Snatchers, The Invasion Continues, which before I revisited it, I thought in the back of my mind that this was like technically a sequel or something like that. But I don't think it is. I think that was just an added on title because they went back to just Body Snatchers per the original story. Mm-hmm. Abel Ferreira is a man of integrity. Let's give everybody a little flavor. I don't know how many people have seen this. Out of all of these movies, I feel like this is probably the least seen of them. It's actually even kind of a pain in the ass to get a hold of. Yeah. Warner Archive puts it out, which if you guys don't know, Warner Archive is like basically on demand printing. Mm-hmm. It's like a DVD-R or a Blu-ray R, whatever the equivalent of that is. But anyways, here, let's just take a little flavor for you. And there you have it.
Basically, the last 30 minutes.
Yeah, cool. Because I had to cut out because there was no TV spots for it. Yeah. Because it actually has kind of a tortured post-production history. It got pushed back and then kind of unceremoniously released in like 1994. Yeah. In limited release before it went direct to video stores. Because I remember that poster. That poster I remember from as a kid, like seeing it at like whatever local movie rental place we were haunting in those days.
Yeah.
But this one is directed by Abel Ferreira. If you guys don't know who Abel Ferreira is, he's directed some pretty good movies back in the day. Killer, or was it Driller Killer? Miss 45.
Bad Lieutenant. King
Bad
of New York.
Lieutenant. King of New York. One of my all-time favorite movies.
Still working today. Yeah.
Recently, he directed the Padre Pio movie with Shia LaBeouf that we kind of mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't been great. He hasn't been great in his older age. I mean, they're all like okay. Like I saw Tommaso, I saw Siberia. They're like okay.
Yeah.
They're fine. But back in the day, dude, back up into the 90s, like from the 70s into the mid 90s, he was kind of a wild card, man. He was a wild dude. He's making some extreme cinema, if you will. He's those New York crime movies are so fucking interesting. They're so like got such vibes, for lack of a better way to put it. I mean, The King of New York is holy shit. What a picture. Trembling says, I've seen the Ferrera one, but all I remember is Burn Notice chick in the bathtub, and it's all on a military base. Well, we'll get into it. We'll refresh your memory.
Well, can I add real quick too? And this is the first thing you notice in the opening credits too. One of the writers, it's 3 writers, but one of them was Stuart Gordon, who most people would pair with a lot of the horror films that he's
Who was
done.
actually originally supposed to direct this.
Yes. And then when you see Story by Larry Cohen, I'm like, oh, this makes even more sense. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it came from that wing of cinema at the time. That Abel Ferrara definitely would have been goofing around with Larry Cohen.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's got a pretty decent cast. Terry Kinney, Meg Tilly's in it. Well, I love the Tilly girls. You know, I love.
I was gonna say, like, I know you've got that famous, wonderful Jennifer Tilly video, but I think I was always a Meg Tilly guy more than Jennifer. But I like both. I love them both.
You're like, oh no, man, I gotta keep my hipster cred, dude. Psycho 2 rules.
Psycho 2. Oh my gosh. Don't cut
Well,
that
actually,
hair. It looks great. Yeah.
Psycho 2 does kind of rule. I'm not gonna lie.
It does.
Christine Elise, if you guys don't know who she is the older sister in Child's Play 2. If you don't remember who she is.
Right, yeah.
Arlie Ermy, Forrest Whitaker.
Yep.
And so forth. But yeah, so this is the one that I have seen the least amount of times. I think maybe I saw it once like a few years ago.
Same.
But I almost remembered nothing about it when I went to watch it this time. So I was kind of excited to dive back into it. And then when I realized it was Abel Ferrara, I was like even more excited. I was like, oh, cool. That's a really interesting choice. And I don't remember anything about this movie. So it was like watching a new movie. And I would say that it's 2 mixed results. Mm-hmm. I don't think this is a bad movie, but it's a very slight movie.
Yeah.
And I do like the approach, though. I like what they're doing. I like the sense of intimacy, like taking it down to this kind of microcosm about a family, you know. I thought that was a good approach to the material because that's, the one that hadn't been done, right?
Right.
What is it like to be a real regular Joe?
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it for what it was, but it is one of those things. It's very much for what it was. What did you think of it?
Well, one thing I would say compared to the 2 that came before is that it is the first example of the Body Snatchers plot where it is kind of a breakdown of the family unit in a way. You still have that focus on all of those characters at some point or another. It's mostly focused on the daughter, of course, but before that we didn't really have that. We had just had like individuals either teaming up or just the individual in the original. Yeah. And here now we get to see what that looks like. I think when it's much more closed in, like you said, very much more intimate. Yeah. And keeping it focused at this military base. Which is an odd choice. It's very specific, but I don't.
It's so on the nose. It's so on the nose.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, oh, they're in the military and they collectivize quickly.
Right.
They don't ask questions. Like.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what was the Gulf War was going around this time. So there's a lot of distrust of governments, distrust of the or questioning what the military was doing. Mm-hmm. What kind of decisions were being made. So I think there was a little like anti-military sentiment at the time, especially from somebody like Abel Ferrara.
Sure.
Yeah. Some very like, hipster New York guy.
Right.
I'm sure he had very lefty politics. I can only imagine.
I'm sure. And that I was trying to break that down a little bit with how he directs this movie because it is... of his films that I've seen, like he does seem a little out of his element with this one.
I think he is, yeah.
It's definitely a big departure from what like we know him for. Like he's such a New York guy that this feels so distant. You know,
there are moments that are very Abel Ferrara in it, which is more in some of the performances he gets, I would say, than any particular moment. Like, you know, the scene towards the end of the movie when Forrest Whitaker basically like loses it.
Right.
And he's like all paranoid and freaking out and he's like tearing at his own face. Like, that's a very Abel Ferrara directed sequence, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like, because it just feels like this very actory and we're anguish and we're going for it and it's real. And you know what I mean? Like, it feels very heavy at times.
Yeah, and that was something that was a little distracting too. Was, you know, I get that Forrest Whitaker, because this is 1993, he wasn't like the biggest name at the time.
No, he's relatively unknown.
He only has 2 scenes really in the whole movie, and they're played up to be like these really operatic like sort of moments for him. But
it's like he was in a different movie.
It's like yeah, one, he's in a different movie, but 2, he's like, I think we're missing scenes. Like there's probably gonna be more with him that we haven't seen. Yeah,
this thing was, I think, cut to the bone. I mean, it's 87 minutes. It's 87 minutes. Like there's no there's no way I believe that Abel Ferrara turned in an 87-minute movie.
Right.
Although, I mean, well, I guess his movies aren't super long, but that feels just because that's like barely feature length, in my opinion.
Well, this, I mean, that you feel the brisk pace of this movie. It rushes by pretty quick.
It moves. It moves. Like you don't have the time to acclimate or really get to know anybody very well or anything. It's just like every scene, something has to happen. That's like, that's plot involved. Like there's not a lot of time to just spend with the characters and like hang out or like there's no breathing room. You know, there's no time for a sense of tension, you know, which is what's so great about the 78 one is because there is tons of breathing room. That movie is very deliberately paced, you know?
Yeah.
And this one, it just kind of feels like unnatural, or maybe they were just trying to match the vibe of these kinds of movies of the time, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they miss so many opportunities on character development. Like there's just never enough time, like with Meg Tilly, as the stepmother,
as the stepmother, because that's supposed to be like this problem they're having as a family, is this acclimation, right? Like,
yeah, there's tension between her and the daughter, and they don't really get to it. There's never time to actually,
which is a bummer, because it beautifully dovetails into the subtext of the invasion of the body snatchers, of this other person in your life, right? This alien person that's coming and taking the place of somebody else, even in a kind of monolithic way, like taking the place of the mother, you know? So it definitely has some interesting ideas in there. Right. It's just nothing ever gets developed, right?
Yeah. And that doesn't shield it from like a few good moments. Meg Tilly has that great little monologue.
Oh, dude, she's great in this. She gets the villain's monologue in this one, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Where are you going to go? Yeah, it's just like, where are you going to run? There's nowhere you can get.
It's great,
because it's just done. I mean, it almost in a way, it encapsulates, I guess, like the conclusions of the first 2 films. We're saying like, we are in a hopeless world now. Basically, like you've got no other place to go. This is
well, the end of the movie is very goofy. Actually, I'm going to bring it up if I can find it quick.
Yes,
I found it earlier.
Right.
Body Snatchers ending. I think that's what it is.
And I always forget how it ends too, because it's like, this is like really goofy, because we already know how this is going to go down.
Well, here's the Where You Want to Go scene. I mean, we could watch that. That's actually it's fucking excellent. Yeah. I'll pop that up too.
It's very sexy.
We got to get this ending though. Body Snatchers 1993.
Yeah.
Because it's so goofy.
Oh,
of
yeah.
Course, now it's not going to show up. Now I'm not going to be able to find it.
I think this is they don't really, I mean, I guess apart from like going back in history with the original, like this is the first time with narration too, because it's a lot of just like the daughters.
Well, I mean, technically the original has narration because of the bookends.
Yeah.
But that's like that's an after the fact thing.
I don't count it as much. Yeah.
Where the fuck? Finale. Okay. Well, let's see here. Let's see here. Is it playing? Do I have it? Are we good? All right. I'm just going to skip to the part I need to be at.
After the kid falls out of the fucking
Oh,
chopper.
dude, it is actually me and my wife were watching it. Oh, I wish that was on here. Is that on here? No, it's not. It is one of the great bad green screen things when the kid's just like pointing up and he's like, ah. It's amazing. Let me catch up with the chat real quick before we watch this.
Sure.
Trelling says, you know that Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was based on an idea by Stuart Gordon and he was supposed to direct the movie. Yes, I did know that. Yeah. Yep. Stuart Gordon just always like victory snatched away by the jaws of defeat over and over and over again in his career.
Even before like he died, like Stuart Gordon never really lost his edge. Like his movies never were like on the level of what he was doing in the 80s and 90s, but he was still like consistent.
Some of them were intense, man. You ever see King of the Ants?
Yes, I was gonna say
King of
that.
the Ants is fucking brutal, dude.
Oh yeah.
I have a hard time watching that movie. That movie is like that Batman fan film, The Death of Batman. Like I have the same feelings, like uncomfortable feelings when I watch those movies.
Right.
Yeah. Trumping says, I like Meg Tilly in the 80s before the titty implants, and that's the real hipster take, but she was more cute then. Listen, we like them all natural around here. Trelling also says, I like pre-implants 80s Jennifer Tilly the most. She was more on the cute side than the tawdry one then. That's true. No lies detected, but also, come on now. I'll allow it. I'll allow it. That's what I say.
She can, I mean, those poses, she can stretch really well in The Big Chill. We'll just say that, you know.
Let's just say I've watched Bound a time or two, my friend. Okay, let's just say that maybe I sometimes sample the scenery.
This has been Jeremy the Coomer.
Yeah. Thank you and good night. Good night and good luck. Good night and good gooning. Thank you. There we go. Good night and good gooning. So what precedes this moment we're about to watch is they escape on a helicopter, the main girl, the final girl and her boyfriend, and they blow up all of these trucks that have the pods in them before they can get away. And now they're returning to some military base. And this is the way that they did. I don't know what the fuck this was, but it made me laugh.
Ti assalgono mentre dormi.
Are you serious? Dude, we just got cucked by this clip live. Oh no. Boy. That's just you. Live. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you. It looked like I abandoned you. We just got cucked by this clip, everybody. My apologies. We have just wasted a massive amount of time. Where is
anyone in the audience know French?
Here we go. Here we go. I got it. Holy shit. Very loud. Okay. We're going to do it this time, guys. I got it. I got it for real this time. Hold on.
But you can only stay awake so long.
Where are you gonna go? Where are you gonna run? Where are you gonna hide? Nowhere. 'Cause there's no one like you left.
Oh my goodness. Worth it.
Abel Ferrera's just behind the camera. Just keep standing there. Just keep holding the pose.
Well,
few more seconds.
Originally, I thought, I was like, it would be really funny if that was Abel Ferrera. But I know it's just the Meg Tilly dialogue slowed down. But what a goofy way to end the movie, though. Like, I think we would have gotten the point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just from that guy's, like, demeanor, the guy flagging him down.
Well, that's
I think
what
I
you
would
think.
I would have understood that, that's a pod person. They're going, the pod people have taken over. I didn't need literally a disembodied voice coming out of nowhere for no reason, totally unmotivated.
Yeah.
By anything. Also, they used the end. They said the end at the end, which was not a common thing. Not very common.
I appreciate that.
This movie got really fucked over though, because it came out around the same time like Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like all of these movies were being made around that time, like these kind of revitalizing these older monster movies and stuff. So this ended up getting kind of pushed back till it was basically just like forgotten.
Yeah, doesn't Kenneth Branagh does Frankenstein in '94 after this, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Was it 94 and 95? Yeah.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been around this time.
It was that like small pocket of time where a lot of these more prestigious directors were, dabbling with the horror genre, or at least going back to their classical roots, or doing something different with it. Subversive.
Yeah. Trebling says it might as well have faded to black and you hear a gunshot. Yes, it's that on the nose. Dude, that's crazy. I'm going to say, in fairness to Abel, I'm going to say that wasn't his call.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that. Let's watch some Meg Tilly before we stop talking about Meg Tilly.
Wake up! Wake up! Wake you up. Get a dress. Carol!
759 Sector C.
Carol! We gotta go! We gotta get out of here! We gotta go right now!
Listen to me, Steve.
No, you don't understand! We've gotta go!
Go where?
No, we gotta go! What the hell are you talking
Like, she's so good. She's so off-putting.
about?
Steve, this is important. Go where? That's right.
It's so like, but it's also like so New Yorker. Go where, buddy? Like, it's like this. You gotta know where to go.
You can't be doing those Trump signs these days.
We are secret MAGA, okay?
Come on now.
Trust the plan. Trust in Q.
Go where? What happened in your room? Are you listening? What happened in your room is not an isolated incident. It is something that is happening everywhere to everyone. So, where are you gonna go?
This is just a modern day mom transing your kids. That's what this is, one of these borderline personality people.
Right.
Where are you gonna?
It's like everybody's transing their kids, honey. Don't you understand? Tommy is now Tina.
Run. Where are you gonna hide? Nowhere. Because there's no one like you left. That's right.
And also, this one kind of doubles down on the idea that, like, at some point, you are the bad guy.
Right, yeah.
Right? Because that's the kind of the theme of I Am Legend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you go back and read the actual story.
Yeah.
Is that they're terrified of him. All the vampire people are terrified of him because he's the only one left. He kills them all.
You pick up on that in this version too with the pod people. Unlike the first two, they're slightly more emotive in their inflection, and sometimes even like they'll make a smirk, or they'll like occasionally like even Meg Tilly will like not be like fully like zombie. She will like kind of like she knows what she's doing, it's
there's a more of a playfulness
right
with the pod people, I'd say, in this version, which is done for dramatic effect, I imagine. Like,
I'm sure
this is one of these things you could do it. We could totally do a cinema sins here, like I don't know, she seems like she's kind of enjoying taunting him. Ding 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 ding. That doesn't make any sense. Pod people don't show emotions.
Excuse me. Come for your information. Oh, by the way,
By the way, Trembling says, I don't know why I had it in my head that Meg Tilly lost the part in Amadeus and quit acting. I don't know, but she did quit acting, didn't she? But I feel like she's come back in recent years. Maybe.
I don't know.
Mayhaps.
She doesn't have a big filmography, at least according to...
No, she doesn't. She went out there, and she got it done, and she got out.
Yeah.
She wasn't interested in all that nonsense, all that actor stuff that, Jennifer was up to. Oh, she did do it. She was in the new Chucky show as herself.
Oh, okay. I still haven't watched that yet, but I was curious about it.
Yeah, and it looks like she's done a few things here and there over the years. Nothing like, but basically... around 94, 95. She's done. Yeah, she didn't. There's a gap between 1995 and 2010.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a 15-year gap. But yeah, she wouldn't have done that with Amadeus though, because Amadeus, that was in the early 80s. So that would put it way
Right.
out, way out. Also, little plug. If you go check out our Goes to the Movies on Amadeus with me and Big Paul.
Take a
It's fun
swig
episode.
for the amount of shameless plugs we've been doing throughout this whole show.
I gotta let the people know. Trembling says Ferrara should have made the pod people be the opposite and very emotive and hand-talky Mediterranean like himself. Yeah, that would be awesome if they all just turned into little Abel Ferreras. I don't know. You just do it. You just do it.
Oh, God.
That's right. That's good. You're listening now. That's very good. Okay, now, I know you're frightened, Steve. I know you're scared. That's okay. I understand that. You're confused. Let me tell you something, Steve. Let me tell you something. All that ain't.
Yeah, because this is a much more like appealing to the emotion of the person, like trying to be like a comforting maternal presence.
Right. I was gonna say, like, she's got that kind of like psychotherapy sort of dialogue there that's like appealing to somebody who's like really suffering and confused and
That's like traumatized. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little bit different because, like, you know, if you were to refer back to like a similar scene in the 78 version, like when Leonard Nimoy is injecting them with the sleeping agent, like they're all very matter of fact. Like there's no emotion. They're not happy to be doing this. They're not sad about doing this. This is just the way it is. Right.
Yeah.
It's very kind of utility driven, where this is much more nuanced, I suppose. But like I said, I think it's probably more for dramatic effect than actually making any larger suggestion about how the pod people behave.
Yeah.
All that fear, all that confusion, it's gonna melt away. It's gonna go away, Steve. It's gonna go away. You go to sleep. Wake up. It's very simple. In the morning, you wake up. You feel wonderful. We will be together. We're connected. We're close. We're together. More pure. That's good.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. This is now your daughter.
Yeah,
This
I
is
gotta
what
say,
happens.
I do love Abel Ferrara's use of shadows throughout this movie too. Like that stuff is really good.
Yeah, I do like the look of the movie.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll look up the cinematographer in a second.
Dad. Dad. Let's go to bed, Steve. Let's go to bed.
Get away from me! Get away from my kid!
And this is where it gets a little too much. But
I think she's got the best of the pod people screams.
she does. But like after all of that, though, it kind of breaks the tone for me a little bit.
Oh,
Now
of course.
I'm
Well,
like,
because it's supposed to be like a violent juxtaposition. Like, you know,
Yeah.
well, I guess the other way didn't work. So now we
Yeah.
got to just scream.
Right.
Now we just got to out you, buddy.
Yep.
Point. Yeah. Trembling says Meg Tilly should have used the P to pull him in. Come, we can make babies. I would have fallen for it. I would have fallen for it too. 100%. I'd be like, didn't you just see? I was almost replicated by this pod thing. He'd be like, hey, you want to get laid? Be like, with you? Yeah. Right now? Yeah.
I mean, I'll
It's a
give
pretty
her,
effective. It's a pretty effective moment.
I'll give her props for the pipes too. If I was screaming like that for more than 6 seconds, I'd be like,
Are you telling me you're not cut out to be a scream queen, huh?
No. but if Meg Tilly did that for me, you know, one day, you know, when we hook up, yeah, you can scream all night.
It's gonna
if you
happen.
want.
Let's put it on our dream board or whatever people
Right.
do. I'll hang a dream catcher over it for extra power. I'll be good to go.
Right.
I'm gonna get you that Meg Tilly date, buddy. Just by willing it into existence. No, I mean, I like this one. It has, like we said, it's got a lot of good ideas that kind of are just underdeveloped. Another one, they have kind of the teen horror movie aspect to it, where there's like kind of a sexual component.
Yeah.
To it in terms of like kind of falling victim to peer pressure, and kind of like what that scene with Meg Tilly was an example of. You know, this idea of just like kind of giving over because of like the gender politics and the sexualized nature of it, and you know, just kind of the conform to like maintain this status quo.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with that, at least the first three leading up, is that like they all kind of like feature something new with the human tendencies to make them still feel human before they all turn and everything.
Yeah.
What's gonna be, you know, discarded once they're pod people at that point. So the teen romance, like, yeah, it's like very of the time, but like at least it's different from the other two, you know. It's like,
oh, for sure. No, I completely understand why it's there. Like I think it's a good thing that it's there. It's just not like really developed very well.
Yeah.
It's all just kind of wham bam, like, oh, they meet each other, they're in love. Like it's very quick. Everything escalates very quickly. Like this, it could have used 20 minutes of just character breathing room. I think you would have had a much better movie, much more satisfying movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like the kind of the sexual dynamics between the characters, you know, it's there. It's just, again, just they don't really do much with it. You know, because there's also this kind of thing about rebellious teenagers that's kind of in there. There's something about the youth versus older people, about authority and kind of fighting back against authority to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also there's even when within the system is out to get you. Like that's kind of like Forrest Whitaker's character.
Sure. And I guess there was probably a lot more leeway for everybody involved to work on this shoot because it is so contained. It's not as big as the other ones, I would say. At least
no, it's a much smaller movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Which in some way, you know, I think it makes it in its own weird fashion kind of realistic.
No, I like the perspective it has. I think that it's really clever. It's really smart. It's a new way, a new angle that hadn't been explored before, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that they had just kind of really bought into it, just like really went into that more.
Yeah.
Honestly, the kind of the military stuff is a little bit of a distraction.
Yeah.
This would have worked just as well in a suburb. Actually, it probably would have worked better in a suburb because you could have had a small town cop. You could have had all like for the authority figure.
I remember when I was watch like clips of this movie before seeing the full thing, like years back. I thought it did take place in a suburb.
Probably because of that scene that shows them running out into the street.
Because they're in this dinky military like unit that is like identical to all the other ones down the road, and it's just I don't know. That's why it's such an oddball in like the collection of these movies. And I think really the big thing for me is just like the length. I know I've been, you know, digging into all these recent films that are just like way too long or over exceed their length. This one could have been longer. It really just needed more time. You know, and as we've said, like with the previous two entries, it's okay if you want to like pad out the time a little bit and really build towards like the abduction of all of these people and turning them into, you know, these pods. You don't have to be so immediate with every scene or feel like you have to be a crowd pleaser. You can really just like I think
let us feel that dread set in, you know, that it never has a chance to do that.
Right. And I think the audience at the time would have been fine with that too. But I don't know.
It's almost like I think the studio decided this was like a cheapy horror movie to just throw on a shelf. I think that's kind of what they ended up doing with it. Sure. They probably hired Abel Ferreira thinking they were going to get something maybe more like highbrow.
Mm.
You know what I mean? They probably did. You know, like because Coppola had done Dracula a couple years before, and that was like a big studio production. It's very, you know, ornate. It's very theatrical.
Yeah.
Maybe they thought something like that with Abel, or he would bring something more interesting to it or something. Because, you know, like we had said before, he does feel like he's a little out of his element. It feels very kind of common, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah.
You know, except for a few moments. There's a few moments where you really kind of see him poke through. It's kind of like when Sam Raimi makes like a big budget studio movie. Like every once in a while, you see a little Sam Raimi in there.
Yeah. You're like, there's the director I know. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. That's like when I was watching, what is it, Doctor Strange 2. And the only reason I watched it was because of Sam Raimi. And yeah.
See, I couldn't even jump on that train at that point. Like everybody was saying, like, Jeremy, you got to watch it just for Sam Raimi. I know you love the Spider-Man films and everything, and Evil Dead. I'm like,
what are you doing, buddy?
I'm marveled out. I can't do it. I just can't.
So I cannot fault you for that. I cannot fault you for that at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. I wish Raimi would go back, like go make some more Drag Me to Hells. Like go, like why can't you just do this shit? Like do all these things that you're developing with Ghost Pictures that never happen. Like why don't you do one of them? You know?
Right.
Trelling says this one is a lot like Disturbing Behavior, where they cut a ton of it out to its detriment. Yeah, I agree with that. Although isn't the extended version of Disturbing Behavior out there? I don't know if it is, actually. I can't remember. I watched it not too long ago. I think I revisited that around the same time we did The Faculty.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because I was gonna say, like, if we want to have another plug, we had a great chat about The Faculty, which also takes a lot of roots from Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
It totally does, yeah.
And
it's actually kind of a unique twist on it.
Yes, yeah.
Then they didn't need to make it a fucking remake or a sequel. It's like, you guys, people out there, you can be inspired by other properties and do something different. Like that, you are allowed. I just want everybody to know that. Like, you don't have to, make your robot cop movie you don't have to call it RoboCop. You can just call it something else. Call it Robot Cop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know what's up with these fools. Or what's going on out there. I'm surprised, we are due for a new Body Snatchers movie. The time is right.
My question is what they're going to title it this time, though, too, because they keep breaking up the title with each one, regardless
it's
of the
going to be
first
called
two.
The Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
Because they're going to go back to the original material, because that's what the directors obviously fell in love with.
The Snatchers of the Body. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that, too. Yeah, that could be a thing. That could be a thing as well. Let's complicate it.
Yeah.
Let's make it weird and unique. The story, actually, if for people out there, if you guys like short-ish science fiction, it's totally worth reading. It actually reminded me a lot of, although this book is much shorter, or this novella, Who Goes There?
Yeah.
Speaking of the thing, actually, the book itself reminded me a lot of that. Trembling says, I don't think there is a director's cut. I think it may be an Event Horizon thing where the cut footage is lost. And then Trembling says, call it Robert Cop. I agree. Call it Robert Cop. You don't need to call it RoboCop. Yeah, I think that might be true, actually. Yeah, that there is some sort of mythic VHS tape that has the original, and that's like the only version that's out there or something. Somewhere, probably in an salt mine in Transylvania. Trembling says, call it Snatch That Body and make it a Jordan Peele movie. That's good.
I would see.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, what's Jordan Peele? Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess Get Out's kind of like a Body Snatchers movie.
Yeah.
That's kind of a Body Snatchers movie. He's done it. He's done it. He should rename, or if he does a sequel to Get Out, it can be Get Out 2, Snatch That Body.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll send him a text.
I think we're starting to see a genre really be formed from this, because you could throw in a lot more movies like Being John Malkovich is technically a Body Snatchers movie.
That's technically is sure.
Yeah, put that in there.
Is The Matrix technically a Body Snatchers movie?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, if you really want to broaden it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess,
Sure.
All right. Well, let's get into 2007's The Invasion. All right. And I got this one did have a TV spot. So you guys are going to be able to get a little flavor. Remember back in this time of 2007, this is what movies were like. They were like this, which it actually is a lot like today.
A piece came out of the sky.
It's contaminated. They're infecting our planet. It's invading people's bodies and reprogramming their DNA. Destroying everything that makes us human.
You can fool them. What? Don't show emotion.
Now, only one woman can unlock the mystery
You're one of them, aren't you?
of the invasion.
We have to stop you.
You can't stop me.
The Invasion, rated PG-13, starts August 17th.
You know what's so funny? I remember that TV spot too.
That
back
TV
when we
spot,
had
me
cable
too.
when it came out. Yeah.
So do I. Yeah. Actually, I don't think I saw this one when it came out. I know I saw it years later, and then I watched it again for this. But yeah, it's definitely not the one that I ever go back to. It's directed by Oliver Hirschbiegel, but there's a little there's kind of some contention here. James McTeague, the director of V for Vendetta, did, I guess, a massive amount of reshoots. Apparently, they had the Wachowskis. I think they were still guys at this time. The Wachowskis came in and did a bunch of rewrites, and James McTeague shot all of that material. So they still, you know, because of, I'm sure, the Directors Guild, they had to give him the credit. But I think it's kind of a James McTeague joint. Just saying. Okay. It's got Nicole Kidman, Daniel Craig, Jeremy Northam, Jeffrey Wright, Veronica Cartwright, which we should mention, was also in the 78 version. We failed to mention her. She's actually pretty good in that movie. It's nice to see her not be like a neurotic mess like she is in Alien. Trelmick says a new remake, they'd probably make it be AI taking over people's bodies through a neural net type device or vaccine. I could see that. I don't know if it would be good, but I could see that. But yeah. So I take it you kind of have a similar experience with this where it's just not one that you have revisited very often.
Yeah, I only revisited it for this very show. And I was left somewhat surprised by things I did kind of like, at least in the first half. But then it starts to make this departure into very cliched territory. I think by at least close to the third act. At a certain point.
Yeah.
I think once Nicole Kidman rescues her son, it just goes downhill from there.
Yeah, it kind of falls apart.
Yeah, but I was surprised in the rewatch that it is still, maybe not in the most genuine way, but still playing with some of these newer ideas for the time that it comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, and it suffers from Abel Ferrara's film where, you know, it's too short. It's not, you're not spending enough time with these characters to actually be able to understand them as human beings before they all turn again.
Yeah.
So it's there's that disconnect again, and
it's just like it's all plot.
Right. Yeah. Everybody has to just like serve the plot, and they're not serving the characters.
Yeah, they're not very much of characters at all. It is very much like it's. I guess the word to use would be generic. Like it's inoffensive. It's not awful.
No.
Like you had said. Like I was kind of like, oh, this is not like the worst thing ever. When I was watching it the other night, I was like, this is all right. But as it goes on, it gets kind of more contrived and worse and worse. You know, they take the angle with this one. Of it being like a virus, like we had talked about just a little bit before, about like kind of bird flu and mad cow disease. Those things were out there being talked about at the time in the news. So they were definitely tapping into those kind of like anxieties and those kinds of fears. Because like we had said earlier, this one is, you can just basically like sneeze on a person, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. Sneeze, spit. Just
And
throw up
there's no pods, right? Is there pods in this?
You don't so it's all genetic, so like they always have those like cutaways to like what's going on like internally in their bodies, and I think that's what they're playing on a little bit more. It is like a full-on like physical symptom that you have to spread organically, and not from something else that's coming from another planet or is growing on the earth, you know. The only thing they do kind of tap into still is just the process, I guess, because everybody's faces do still shrivel up and they still get like webbed and everything. And If you're sleeping for a certain amount of time, yeah, you're gonna turn into one of these creatures. They're a little bit more hostile in a couple scenes, but
yeah, it's like Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead.
yeah, right, yeah,
They're like hissing and like
yeah. It's just like what's
like when
going
the
on
dude
here?
tries to bust down Nicole Kidman's door.
yeah.
Yeah, he like comes out and he's like hissing at her. He's like, "What are you doing?"
Right. Which like the pod people that we know like wouldn't do that like upright. Like at best they would just oust you and point at you. From what we know,
Yeah,
so.
it's just there for dramatic effect, like for convention. Like,
yeah,
I don't even think it's something that they actually even stick to, really.
Yeah.
Although I guess the personality shifts are much more subtle for the people. Like, because the one that comes to mind is the Veronica Cartwright character, because there's this subplot about her like domestic abuse.
Yeah,
and that kind of goes nowhere. It's just a way for Nicole Kidman to feel panicked that she can't get in touch with her.
Yeah.
Like that's literally that's what it's there for. It's just there for a mechanical function. I thought that they were trying to say something about like domestic abuse or something, and I was like, no, they weren't. It just didn't go anywhere.
It reminded me of Black Christmas 2006, where it was trying to make all these like specific little nods to the like those 70s films.
Yeah.
Like even Nicole Kidman's last name is Bennell, so I thought they were like they're playing on a little bit of those tropes a little bit, but like so like it's fan service, but also they're trying to like fit, like you were saying earlier, just like this generic 2006 to 2009 sort of
it just feels
movie
like
framing.
It's like when I think about it, the phrase "one of those movies" comes to mind. It's just like one of those movies from this time, you know,
right?
Like these slick Hollywood like studio productions. You know, they were genre stuff was kind of gaining popularity at the time, so they were kind of putting out their versions, hopefully trying to kind of reestablish like it's almost like territorial. Like, no, these are the classics. We have the classics. We're gonna keep making the classics. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Honestly, I'm surprised that they're not like gearing up for one right now. I feel like it's time. It's been 17 years since the Invasion came out.
Yeah.
We need a new one for the modern era. It's going to be about social media. It has to be, right? It has to be about social contagion, which is another element that's present in all of the movies.
Yeah, are you not a TikToker yet? What's going on here?
What's going on here? Why aren't you on the talk, bro? Let me see. Trembling says, "Oh, it would definitely not be good, and a modern remake would have had the worst messaging. The pod people would be a big MAGA analogy or something." Oh, 100%. Yeah. Or maybe they would go really dark and just the pod people are the good people. They're the heroes.
Yeah.
That would be the modern way to do it. Make them the heroes.
Yeah.
Trembling says, "This one was as forgettable to me as the remake of the Day the Earth Stood Still that came out around the same time." Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
it's one of those movies. Like they all kind of mix together and they all feel like they're the same thing.
And that one that was Scott Derrickson directing that movie too, which always like when I like looked back I was like, "Oh, I didn't know he directed that." Because
he must have got fucked.
Right.
I bet he got fucked by the studio on that thing.
Oh, yeah, that was his last big like studio job at that point, because you only get picked up like on projects like that like by like chance, like even if you have like a successful horror movie or two and then you get to do like the big blockbuster, you're taking a real gamble with those studio heads.
And because that was right before they were scooping up every like indie talent and being like, "Here's $200 million.
Yeah,
deal with it."
Yeah, have at it.
I can't even really be mad at most of those guys because you're just like, what the fuck were they supposed to do? Like, Jesus Christ, you go from like Safety Not Guaranteed to Jurassic World.
Yeah,
that's like, what the fuck? You're not ready for that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem with modern filmmaking. Just nobody's going through the grinder. Like nobody's going through the process of like becoming talented filmmakers and then
Yeah.
getting an opportunity with like big studio projects. Maybe the only one, you know, who's a modern example of somebody that's successfully done that is probably Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
I mean, Christopher Nolan kind of earned his stripes a little bit, right? Like he
Yeah.
put out some movies. He put out some studio stuff. Like he found success and before he got involved with like Batman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he kind of worked up to that.
I'd say a less more contemporary example too. I would say like Adam Wingard with Godzilla v Kong. You know, he went a long way to get to that point, and that's a huge jump from like something like The Guest or something. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I don't think he's nearly as good.
No.
Not
Of
even
course,
like,
of course. Yeah.
on the same planet, honestly.
But yeah, I mean, just those like those examples of people that like get their first like real big gig. Or
Well, you should have to earn it, and it's not for some sort of like kind of dumb notion like you got to work for what you have. Like not even that. It's just like you have to develop your voice and your craft. Like the idea that you would be able to handle something like that, like coming off of like an indie movie, is just not realistic. And I think they do it on purpose so they can exert control. They can really like push them into doing whatever they want them to do. Because, you know, so many of those things are by fucking committee. Although Taika Waititi successfully like sabotaged the Thor movie. So I guess maybe they do let them do whatever the fuck they want. That Thor Love and Thunder, like that was just like, he just did not give a shit.
Yeah.
Even relative to the quality of those movies, like he really just like took the money and run with that one. It's almost kind of respectable in a way.
Yeah, no, and I'm coming to respect his filmography even more so in that regard too, because he I think after Thor he's actually kind of downgraded himself back to his roots again.
Yeah, he's probably exhausted.
The same way Scott Derrickson has too. You know, because he's doing like Black Phone 2 or whatnot, and you know. I think these guys.
Yeah, he got burned. They booted him off of Doctor Strange too.
Yeah. You know what'll be interesting is to see if they hire like a Mike Flanagan type for one of these big blockbusters at some point.
Actually, you know, in the modern era, we wouldn't get a movie. We're gonna get an 8-part Netflix show, 8-part Netflix miniseries directed by Mike Flanagan.
There you go.
Invaded, snatched. Snatched up. Trembling says the trick is to tell Disney no when they try to grab you up immediately. Yeah. It would if they had some integrity, and I think it happens occasionally. Every once in a while, they'll be like, "No, I'm not. I can't do that."
Yeah.
I mean, I guess to his credit, although it was more out of just pure cowardice. Like Kevin Smith did that a few times. Like he was going to direct a Superman movie. He was going to direct a Green Hornet movie. He got out of it. And he's like, I don't make these kinds of movies, dude.
Yeah.
I can't do this.
But
anyways, the invasion. So it's, you know, it's slick, kind of generic fare. Tapped into the anxieties of the time, as every one of these has kind of done to one degree or another. Is anything notable in the movie? Anything like stands out to you as like something you were like kind of taken by, like impressed by, or thought was particularly bad?
No, I mean, I'm kind of like you in that Veronica Cartwright, like showing up for it, I thought was a nice little touch.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Added a fun dynamic to it. You know, weirdly, like in terms of just casting alone, Daniel Craig felt. It's like
he's not good in this.
He's not very good, but he's kind of lost in that like whole Hollywood figure phase right now, because I think he does. Does he do James Bond before this, or at least the
No,
first
James
one?
Bond would have been right after this.
Just right after? Okay.
It was around this time for sure. I mean, this was on a shelf for a while. I think for like
Okay.
2 years. So
Okay. So he feels a little just kind of out of his element here.
he's too like he just feels unnatural and he feels smug.
Yeah.
Like the things that make him work for like a James Bond work against him in almost every other role he plays.
Yeah.
Maybe the only time it's ever lined up was like in a different movie with a different character was the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Right. Yeah.
Like, because he's kind of playing James Bond.
Yeah.
Kind of. You know, there's a coldness to that character. There's a distance there.
Sure.
But in this one, I just thought he was kind of smug and just unpleasant.
Yeah.
And, you know, Nicole Kidman is just being Nicole Kidman. It's a very 2007, you know, Nicole Kidman performance.
Doesn't have to do a whole lot. It was kind of interesting seeing like a younger Jeffrey Wright, I guess, before he's like at the fame that he's at now.
Oh, dude, you got to go back and check out Jeffrey Wright in Shaft.
Oh, okay.
Shaft 2000?
Yeah.
Dude, yeah. No, he plays like a cholo.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you ever seen it?
No, well, I've seen scenes from it, but I've not watched it in full. In fact, I haven't even seen the recent one that came out a few years ago.
Oh, that one's awful. You don't need to watch that.
Okay.
I mean, you don't even really need to watch Shaft 2000, but like it's a very entertaining movie.
Right.
It's not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it's very entertaining. And if you have any affinity for like blaxploitation or Shaft in general, it's worth checking out.
I enjoyed the original.
And Jeffrey Wright is in it.
Okay.
Oh, one thing before we go through the rest of the cast. Nicole Kidman, what was the deal with her agent and doing remakes at this time in her career? 'Cause she did The Stepford Wives. She did Bewitched. Then she did this. There might be another one in there.
I think she did the remake. Is it called The Beguiled with Clint Eastwood? She did that remake as
Beguiled.
well.
Yeah,
Beguiled.
that was way later though. That was like
Yeah.
that was like 2014. That was Sofia Coppola.
Right.
It's actually pretty good. It's not bad.
Yeah. I don't know. This was just her era to do all these like weird, twisted feminist movies. I think.
I guess so. Yeah, maybe she really responded to the scripts. You know, the power of the characters. You know? Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. Yeah. She made some stinkers. Like she was on a bad run at this time. Like even like the movies I mentioned, Stepford Wives, Bewitched, The Invasion.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, 'cause she's no stranger to like to a lot of the blockbuster territory.
No, not at all.
And horror. Like, I think she's amazing in The Others. That's probably one of her best performances.
Which I think came out the same year this came out. So
yeah. But like, I know there's like that story where I think her father or maybe her parents are like really insanely rich and they own a lot of like properties or things like that, and so they're
or her father is no, never mind, that's not her. But yes, her parents are rich.
Yeah. So she just kind of gets all these connects. You know, the thing that's always bothered me about Nicole Kidman too is that she's always never acknowledged that like her first big breakout role was BMX Bandits, the Brian Trenchard Smith movie that like got her like her stardom.
She has. She's I think she has in recent history.
Okay.
I think I think there was a time where she was trying to distance herself from it. Yeah.
Right, but it's just like a lot of other actors, even like almost to her level, were like less classless and would say like, oh yeah, I got my start here, and that's just, you know, that was my acting journey. You know
who also did that? It was Renee Zellweger. She would not acknowledge the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation forever.
Oh yeah, right.
And I think she's still. I don't know if she's reconciled with that. I don't know if she's gotten over the trauma of that. Almost. I guess maybe she feels like it was going to derail her career or something.
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey is pretty good spirited about it.
Yeah.
He just says he doesn't really remember doing it. Sorry, trivia hounds.
Yeah, he had a short paragraph, I think, McConaughey in his book that I read a few years ago on.
Oh, did you read Green Lights?
Yeah. It's not a bad book, but it's he didn't have a whole lot to say about Texas Chainsaw.
What a
It was
loser.
more about like his stuff with Linklater and then his later career. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's because when he started, being more serious about these Greenlight Diaries.
Yeah.
It's got to remember, Jeremy. You got to remember those green lights in your life.
Yeah. Push out the other ones. They were nightmares. Yeah.
He was going through like this brief like guru phase. He was like, I remember I watched him on Joe Rogan, and I was like, he's like a guru. He's like a guru now.
Oh, dude, he was starting to look like an old woman at certain points.
Around this time, they also had him to the White House to speak out against gun violence.
Yeah, just absolutely.
I was like, what is going on? The fuck is going on? Get me a real celebrity.
Who's
Give me
paying
somebody
these people?
yeah. Give me one of Donald Trump's friends, okay?
You're right.
Get this loser out of here. This loser actor.
Yeah.
Give me that guy from Shark Tank. Not Mark Cuban. One of the cool ones. That's who I want to hear from.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the invasion though it's forgettable, but not as bad as I remembered it being. It's just kind of whatever. And the ending is bad. And the ending is bad.
Yeah. And it doesn't. Yeah. By the end, it doesn't seem to really have much interest in the paranoia or the mystery or
no.
It just kind of it gets, as we've been saying, just very generic.
I mean, it's an hour and 40 minutes, and it's very breakneck. It covers a lot of ground, like, very quickly. I mean, like, the first scene, we're pretty much off to the races. It's when the CDC director, her ex-husband...
Yeah.
He gets turned immediately. and then we're off.
Yeah.
You know, he's got all this bureaucratic control. He's like a Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
He's like a Dr. Fauci, dude. Dr. Fauci's a fucking pod person.
I was also surprised how well the son survived for as long as he did too, because I mean, these pod people are like very mischievous, and they're like putting things in like your tea or in the food you eat and everything too. Like, how are you avoiding all of that at a certain point without like it not being forced down your throat? You know, like you think this would spread faster, or these people will be a little bit more susceptible to it. But
yeah, I guess that's what their version of like the ticking clock for this movie is, like, to have like moments where she almost takes a sip of tea.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
phones. Don't. Like, that's not quite as effective as watching somebody get replicated. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, one of the things I liked about the 93 one was with the kid at the end. When they have, like, when they see their friend, they're pretending to be pod people. They're running towards the helicopter, and they see their friend, the girl from Child's Play, and they have that exchange. And the way that it reveals itself is excellent. It's a great moment.
Right.
And also, when the kid turns out to be a pod person, me and my wife were laughing so hard. Because this kid just fucking freaks out and just starts trying to crash the helicopter.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And the guy's like yelling, "Throw him out of the helicopter."
Yeah. Like,
throw him out. We were all yelling. Me and my wife, we were yelling too. We were like, throw him out.
I know this pilot who was like in such defense and like loved this kid for the longest time is like, yeah, just kill him off now. We're done.
Get him out of here. Get him out of here. Trelling says, Dr. Fauci reminds me of the little doctor guy in Joe Dante's The Burbs. Actually, he does. He does have that, yeah.
Yeah. Really good character actor. I forget his name. It's one of those German names, but
yes, I can't remember. He's in Magnolia as well. He's
in Magnolia.
He's like that. He's like that queen at the bar.
Yeah, he's in The Long Goodbye as well. He's got a good role in that. If he was still around, man, we could get a fun little like Fauci satire movie.
Yeah,
with him in the role.
Call up SNL immediately. See if this guy's still alive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, and it's a cool series. It was actually really fun to go through like all of the movies, and kind of track the trajectory and kind of what the things were, what the concerns of the time were, and how they kind of utilize, the basic conceit to kind of explore those ideas. Obviously, some did it way better than others. But I guess we should do this though, since we watched them all. What's your ranking?
Ooh, I mean, maybe we're on the same page here. I don't know. I would say, yes, 78 goes on top. Then 56 second. Body Snatchers 93 goes third, and then probably Invasion fourth. Yeah.
Mine would be exactly the same. Exactly the same. Trembling says it's Henry Gibson. It's something Gibson, I'm sure. I don't know. I'll look it up. Let's give him his honorifics. Let's respect him. Let's be little Fauci guy respecters. Where is he? Yeah, Henry Gibson. Henry Gibson. He passed away in 2009, unfortunately. Magnolia, Inner Space. Yep. The Blues Brothers. Nashville. He did voices on King of the Hill.
Why the hell did I think he was German? That's
I don't know.
Yeah.
Are you thinking of like Udo Kier or something?
Maybe that could be it. Yeah.
Definitely not Udo Kier.
No. That's a different eccentric, but
yeah, he's in a lot of TV shows, a lot of bit parts in movies, like a lot of voice acting. The guy was everywhere. He was he was even in an episode of Erie, Indiana.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Trembling says, "Oh yeah, he's the Illinois Nazi." Yeah, and the Blues Brothers.
Oh, okay, that's why. Yeah. And he's
Yeah.
got an accent in the Burbs too, so I guess that's probably why I was equating the two. I guess that speaks to his
prowess
really good
as an
acting.
actor. Yeah. What a thespian. What a thespian. Good old Henry Gibson was. Rest in peace.
Right.
Rest in peace, Henry Gibson. But yeah, it was really cool going through these movies in this way and kind of thinking about them and thinking about the time in which they were made. And I really do think we're kind of ripe for a new one.
Yeah, well, I think the one of the other big takeaways of any of the movies really is this this pressure to conform, I think, and like you're escaping being yourself, and I don't. You're right in saying that we are ripe for another one of these movies, but I just can't see it being told well today. Honestly,
No.
that's the problem.
We would have to have some real honest actors, not literally actors, but honest, genuine storytellers that really wanted to explore the moment, and I don't think that's out there.
Yeah.
At least not anybody that's going to have access to the Body Snatchers.
Right.
And that's kind of a shame. That's a shame. Although, who says it has to be called the Invasion of the Body Snatchers? Some industrious people, like I was saying before, it's okay to be inspired by something,
Right.
It's totally acceptable. It's totally acceptable to do an Invasion of the Body Snatchers-esque film.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way it's okay to do a zombie movie or something.
Sure.
Trembling says, by the way, Jeremy, you getting the remaster of the Thing game? Of course he is. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah. What's it coming out? Is it coming out for PS5?
No, it's coming out on PC. Good Old Games is doing a remaster of it, or they're putting out the remaster. It's the PC port.
Oh, I'd have to upgrade my arsenal, but I'll check it out.
I'm gonna get it. I'm getting it. I mean, even though I totally agreed with your review, I 100% agreed with everything that you said about it. Because it's a game full of great ideas, cool concepts, and just not utilized very well.
No,
it's just but it's there, and it kind of feels cool. You're like, oh, awesome, it's there. Because you can just imagine in your mind the possibilities of a Thing game, especially nowadays in a world post something like L.A. Noire, with those kinds of systems that we could do with interrogation and shit. It would be awesome.
Yeah. They just weren't
awesome.
in 2002 or 2001. They just weren't ready, I think, at the time to even use that trust feature. But there
it's
was
not well developed enough. Yeah,
there was potential there. There really was, and it. I think you could, if they remaster it correctly, there is potential now, maybe a little bit more.
No, I don't think they're just remastering the game, and I think updating the controls for modern controllers.
Okay.
I don't think that they're doing they're not touching the game itself. They're not remaking it. It's literally just a visual upgrade and then quality of life stuff. Although, I was always bummed that development team, I can't remember who developed it. that they didn't get to make a sequel, because I would have loved to have seen them kind of iterate and build on those concepts, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's really how it's done in video games. You know, you got to make a bunch of them before you kind of find that right mix. I mean, most series, it's usually the second or third game that's the best one, you know? Like Resident Evil 2, Turok 2. I'm sure there's Doom 2, Quake 2.
Right.
Tremix says, any sequel to The Thing always has the problem of ruining the perfect ending of the movie. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
You can't sequelize The Thing.
If you read those two direct sequel comics to it, I think they came out like in the 90s or something.
I've never read them.
No, I've only seen like abridged versions of them, but they're another one of those examples where John Carpenter is full on hell bent saying like, oh yeah, these are definitely the sequel to what I was doing, and you know, like so blindly thinking like, dude, come on, have some like. I don't know.
I don't know if it's still up or out there, but the video essayist Rob Ager. Do you know who Rob Ager is?
Yeah. Hello, Rob Ager here.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Rob Ager here.
Yeah.
Anyways, he has like what he would envision the sequel to be. Like he did a video presentation of it. And it was actually kind of novel. It was actually a little bit more Invasion of the Body Snatchers-esque. In a sense, because of it's like the Thing gets into the government essentially, and starts. It's basically takes a peek at the story from that perspective. Although, if I'm not mistaken, there was actually an aborted sequel to The Thing that was supposed to be a Sci-Fi Channel like miniseries. There's a podcast that's about unmade sequels, and they interviewed the writer and the guy who was going to be the director.
Okay,
it's actually pretty interesting, but it was kind of very kind of generic and hacky, and it was like kind of what it's like everywhere else. It was kind of more of like a national or global perspective of how the Thing was kind of taking over in different parts, and it like followed like a family, and it followed like the government and the military, you know. It just didn't seem like it would be good, but it was interesting to hear like what they were thinking about. Trembling says the sequel comic just makes it so child's is the Thing and ruins it. See, I've never read it, but yeah, that's awful. That sucks.
Yeah. See, my ideal sequel is that Wilford Brimley gets away in his saucer, and he makes it to some town. Let's say like he goes to Alaska first, and it's just him just zapping people in his UFO. I would love to see that for like 5 minutes.
Just full on madness, full on Wilford Brimley. Get him into a hard target mode. Start blasting, dude. Yeah. The Thing is awesome though. I'm glad that that's never. Well, it did get a prequel. One of the most insane stories ever, too. The fact that they shot everything practically and then covered it in CGI, like, is so insane.
Yeah.
Release the practical cut effect, please. Or the practical effects cut. Sorry, the practical cut effect. That doesn't make any sense.
It was those Weinsteins. Yeah.
Those fucking Weinsteins, those fucking pigs, man. I don't even understand the motive. Well, no, I do understand why they did it. The reason they did it is like because they said people don't like practical effects anymore. Like people want CGI monsters,
which is retarded. That's not true. You know, it's just
especially because it's just like you're making a prequel to like what is kind of a niche movie. Like I know everybody's kind of seen The Thing, but how many people really give a fuck about The Thing? Like outside of like film circles.
Yeah.
It's not a movie I hear about all the time. Like if anybody's talking about The Thing, it's me. I'm the one that's like bringing it up, you know? Not the normies that I'm like having at a dinner party for my wife's work or something. They're not going to talk about The Thing, but I will. I'll bring it up.
Yeah.
But actually I have. That's kind of makes me laugh. I was at a wedding. And I ended up finding a way to bring it up.
Nice. Yeah, Sean here is he's the Walter White saying, "I am the Thing who knocks."
Yeah, I am the one who knocks and talks about The Thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I got to do that on a stream. I'm gonna watch The Thing. I'm gonna watch both of them. I'll watch the prequel and The original.
I will
Maybe
join.
I'll make a.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
you want to be?
need
You want to
an
go?
attendant to do-
All right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. Your first stream back. That's what we'll do.
Sweet. That'd be a good treat.
Yeah, ease back into the streaming situation. Watch a couple movies. One of them very good. Trembling says those same effects guys did a cool Green Goblin animatronic that obviously wasn't used but would have been cool. Yes, I've seen that.
Yes, yeah,
it is cool.
Yeah.
It's like I kind of understand why they didn't go with it, but it was very cool. It was very cool. But yeah. I guess that's the stream, everybody. We did it. We talked about all of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, covered some news. Boy, what a journey. What a journey we've been on tonight, my son. So this is your last stream for a minute, though.
Yep. Yes. I will be off in full pre-production mode, I guess, for the next few weeks up until we're actually shooting. And yeah, I guess for those listening or watching, yeah, I'm directing my first feature with a few good pals that I've worked with many times over the years. So yeah, pretty excited.
And what's the title? The sharp end of a... Oh, let me see if I can get it. I always get it wrong. The sharp end of a buck knife.
You got it. That's right.
I got it. I think it's locked in. I think it's locked in now.
I think it's just... there's no the. It's just sharp end of the buck knife.
Okay, well, fine. You know what, dude? I take it back. I hope your movie sucks. If it had a the in the title, it would be greatly improved.
You know, Sean, I hope so too.
You know what, you son of a bitch? No, it's. I'm very excited for it.
Right,
I'm very happy for you. It sounds like it's going to be a blast. And yeah, break a leg out there, dude.
Yeah, we're going to break a leg. We're going to be heat exhausted for sure. Fighting bugs, getting splattered with blood. It's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a fun vacation. That's what we're going to treat it as. So.
Yeah, because you guys are doing it in, what, 7 days, right? You're doing a week?
Oh, we're going, yeah, the whole, like, Sunday to Sunday, week-long whole. So
there you go. I like it. I like what I'm hearing. All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thanks, Jeremy, for being my faithful co-host here. And like I said, break a leg out there, buddy. Make some cinema. Have some fun. And I can't wait to pester you about what's going on. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then Trembling says to end the night, Trembling says, some Texas Chainsaw Massacre filming experience. Exactly.
Yes.
You got to earn it. You got to earn it a little bit, right? You got to find your voice, and that's where we're headed. That's the road we're now on. That's a good road to be on. All right, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
We'll see you next time.